Still don't. Get plenty of calcium. Be kind to your knees. You'll miss them when they're gone. Maybe you'll marry. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll have children. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll divorce at 40. Maybe you'll dance the funky chicken on your 75th wedding anniversary. But trust me on the sunscreen.
Now on the BBC World Service, this month's World Questions comes from Botswana.
A stable democracy with free elections, a healthy economy, and now a country on the cusp of change. In the throes of a vibrant election, promises on jobs, inequality, corruption, and even the country's elephant population give a sense of a country at a turning point. With both the opposition and the government promising change, join me, Toyosi Ogunseya, in Botswana.
World Questions, Saturday at 18 and Sunday at 11 GMT. And at 10:30 GMT, the documentary.
Every evening, vans head north out of Greece with bodies in the back, driving overnight to the Sofia crematorium in Bulgaria. It processes 18 bodies a week. The dead make this detour because there are no crematoriums in Greece. Join me, Asif Kapadia, for one of the strangest journeys in Europe.
This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
It's 10 o'clock in London, 5 in Washington, 12 in Nairobi. I'm Julian Marshall with World Update from the BBC. With just 6 weeks before a possible no-deal Brexit, the European Commission says no progress has been made in talks with the UK. Israel's second election this year produces no clear winner. We hear from the ruling Likud party.
There's only been 1 or 2 cases in Israel where there wasn't a decisive coalition that we were able to form, whether it was to the left or to the right. So obviously it is challenging.
Following attacks on his country's oil installations, Saudi Arabia's ambassador to Britain warns against a hasty response.
Almost certainly it's Iranian-backed. We are trying not to react too quickly because the last thing we need is more conflict in the region.
And what makes for a great political memoir? That's after the latest world news.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. The European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker has told the European Parliament that he can't say progress has been made in Brexit talks. With 6 weeks to go until Britain's scheduled departure, he said London had come up with no firm proposals to replace the backstop, the contingency plan to avoid a hard border in Ireland. But Mr Juncker told Parliament that a no-deal Brexit would never be the EU's choice. Our correspondent Adam Fleming is in Strasbourg.
The EU is really keen to appear to be the good guy in this situation, and they do not want to be responsible or seem to be responsible for a no-deal Brexit. That means their door will remain open to negotiate with the UK at any point, at any time, for however long they want, right up until the last possible second. What really matters, though, is whether the UK can come up with detailed, written, coherent proposals that meet their red lines. And the EU officials who do the negotiations are not convinced that there will be any proposals that can do the same job as the backstop in a different way.
The Supreme Court in London will continue hearing 2 appeals today to decide whether the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson acted lawfully in suspending Parliament for 5 weeks in the run-up to the Brexit deadline. Lawyers for the opposition argue the suspension is designed to prevent parliamentary scrutiny of the UK's exit of the EU. But lawyers for the Prime Minister argue he acted within the law. Saudi Arabia's new ambassador to Britain has warned against a hasty response to the attack on Saturday on his country's oil installations. Iran has denied being behind the incident. Speaking to the BBC, the ambassador, Prince Khalid bin Bandar Al Saud, said the last thing the Middle East needed was more conflict. He emphasised the global significance of the incident.
This is a blow for the world and the world economy, not just Saudi Arabia. The decision to attack that particular location, I think, needs to be heard around the world. It's no longer just us who are suffering from these attacks. The whole world is.
Asked about the murder last year of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi by Saudi government agents, the ambassador described it as a stain on his whole country. Israelis are facing fresh political deadlock after their second general election in 5 months. Exit polls suggest that neither the Likud party of the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, nor the blue and white centrist alliance of his main rival, Benny Gantz, have won enough seats to form a government. Mr. Gantz told his supporters in Tel Aviv that he would push for a government of national unity. His words are voiced by an interpreter.
Above politics, we are one people and one society. The polarity and incitement is behind us, and unity and peace is in front of us.
You're listening to the latest world news from the BBC. The Zimbabwean government says it's deploying doctors from the armed forces at hospitals to minimise disruption caused by striking health workers. They've stayed away from work this week to protest against what they say is the abduction of a doctors' union leader. Ecuador's National Assembly has rejected a proposal to decriminalise abortion in cases of rape or for fetal abnormalities. Police used pepper spray to disperse crowds who'd gathered outside the Assembly building in Quito. This protester, Ana Cristina Vera, was furious at the result of the vote.
What we want is for Ecuador to dress as if it's in mourning. Torture as state policy has been upheld. Girls and women in the country, victims of sexual violence, are systematically tortured, forced into motherhood that they don't want, forced to have no choice, to not be respected as people with human dignity.
3 people have been killed in the Italian city of Venice after a powerboat crashed during a speed record attempt. It hit a sea wall at Venice Lido while travelling at about 150 kilometres an hour. And an Australian hiker who fell and broke his leg while out walking has been rescued after spending 2 days crawling to safety. Neil Parker slipped as he climbed up a waterfall near Brisbane. He told reporters he was using his walking sticks as splints for his leg, then dragged himself towards a clearing to give himself a better chance of being spotted.
The only way I'm going to raise the alarm is I'm going to have to climb or scramble back out the rocks to get back out of here. So I went and put my phone in my pocket, missed the pocket and into the drink. Now my phone's gone. Now I have no way of contacting the outside world, and I'm thinking, only way I'm going to get rescued is self-rescue. It's the only way I can think. I don't know who's going to be able to find me.
Mr. Parker was finally seen from a helicopter and winched to safety. And that's the latest BBC News.
You're listening to World Update from the BBC. I'm Julian Marshall. And later in the programme, Israel's second election this year has failed to break the political deadlock. We'll be speaking to an MP from Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. A new advice for pregnant women: avoid heavily polluted roads. They could affect the development of your unborn baby. But we go first to Strasbourg, where the European Parliament is currently debating the UK's departure from the European Union. The government of Prime Minister Boris Johnson is determined to leave on October the 31st, with or without a deal, but he stands accused by his critics of not having a plan to conclude an agreement, while the Supreme Court in London is to decide whether Mr Johnson acted lawfully in suspending the British Parliament for 5 weeks in the run-up to the Brexit deadline. Speaking earlier in Strasbourg at that debate, the outgoing European Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, said no progress had been made in Brexit talks.
I said to Prime Minister Johnson that I have no emotional attachment to the safety net, to the backstop, but I stated very clearly that I stand by the objectives that it is designed to achieve. That is why I call on the Prime Minister to come forward with operational proposals in writing for practical steps which would allow us to achieve those objectives. Now, until such time those proposals have been presented, I will not be able to tell you, looking you straight in the eye, that any real progress has been achieved.
He went on to say the European Commission remained committed to finding a solution.
The Commission is prepared to work day and night, with a few breaks, to try and find the technical and political solutions we need, but I'm not sure we'll get there. There is very little time remaining, but what I do know is we have to keep trying.
And in response, Geoffrey Van Orden, the leader of the British Conservatives in the European Parliament, said the UK government wanted to reach an agreement, but it must leave the EU in 6 weeks' time.
The British government wants a deal, not any old deal, but one that is acceptable to the British Parliament and the British people, and we need to get it over with quickly. so we must leave on the 31st of October. We should have left on the 29th of March, then on the 12th of April, now on the 31st of October. What's the point of further delay? Some of you may think that if we drag this out a bit more, then there'll be a change of regime in Britain, maybe a change of heart, and I believe this is total delusion. What sort of relationship do you want to see with Britain in the future? A positive one, based on friendship and goodwill and mutual interest, or one based on anger and bitterness and exclusion?
And I'm joined on the line by Danuta Hübner, MEP, a member of the European Parliament's Brexit Steering Committee. And it would appear from the tenor of all those remarks that it is currently deadlock.
Well, there's no progress, which is probably there's a difference between deadlock and no progress, but definitely we are waiting for anything that could come in a written form from the British government, from the Prime Minister. My personal suspicion is that he's waiting for the Tory conference, because now all the British parties have been involved in the conferences, and the Tory conferences, I think, next week. So I can imagine that the Prime Minister can come with real papers and a fully fledged proposal after he discusses it with his party members. So that's my hope. But of course we are nowhere. We are 6 weeks before the deadline and the end of the second already extension. And we don't see the proposal from the British side. But I think it just speeches some of the British colleagues they should have in the domestic parliament or towards British government, because it's not up to us to find a solution now, and to also prepare something that should be prepared by the British government.
But can I confirm with you, can I clarify with you that
Yes.
Since Boris Johnson took office, there have been no substantive negotiations between the European Union and the British government?
Well, you know, the people of Barnier's team, the negotiators, the whole team working in the European Commission, they spent summer in Brussels waiting for British colleagues to come and to negotiate. We have recently, I think for the last 2 weeks, there have been meetings, but without any proposal, any concrete proposal in a written form. So it's more, these are new people, so they have to probably also learn a lot of things about the relationship and the existing options. So there is no progress in the sense that we don't see any replacement for the backstop, which is this insurance policy measure for the Northern Ireland border. We haven't received anything, but meetings have place, and I would say that recently they have been with more intensity. Negotiator and technical teams are coming here, but we haven't heard anything concrete from the British side for the replacement.
So what on earth are they talking about?
Well, you have to, because you know it's concrete issues related to the borders, and to have or not have as exceptional or special solution for the Northern Ireland once UK is out of the European Union. So how to organize this? We have proposed a backstop, which is a safeguard for the situation where there is no agreement, but we don't know the proposal from the British side for this border yet. So that's complex, of course, because we want to have a part of British territory wants to have a special solution that would allow them to continue this all-island economic ties that they have on the Irish island between the Northern Ireland, which is British, and Republic, which is EU member state.
Danuta Hübner, MEP, many thanks for joining us. And with me now, Georgina Wright, Senior Brexit Researcher from the Institute for Government, which is a think tank here in London. And we appear to be going round and round and round on this at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the exact same eternal problem, which is how do you find a deal that is acceptable to the EU that will also make it through here in the UK Parliament? Now, from the EU's perspective, and you heard that quite strongly from Danuta right now, is the sense that actually the deal on the table is the outcome of complex and at times tedious negotiations. And so if the government is serious about tweaking it or improving it or having a new deal, then government must come up with proposals.
Is any vote that the European Parliament might take at the end of their debate binding on the British government?
So, I mean, it's really important to remember that it is actually the Commission that negotiates with the UK government on behalf of EU leaders. Now, the European Parliament remains an important actor. It has to approve the deal. But really, I think at the moment, all the nitty-gritty of the negotiations will really be led by the Commission in very close coordination with member states. But also they will be talking, and they have been talking to the European Parliament. So the European Parliament is an important actor, but they will not be in those negotiations. They will not be in the room when the government meets the EU and discuss how they can improve the deal.
I mean, it's a serious accusation to make, but it would appear from the kinds of remarks that have been made in Strasbourg, the kind of remarks that are being made in Brussels about the absence of a plan, that Boris Johnson has not been telling the truth to British voters.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to remember what it looks like for them. If you're an MEP in the European Parliament, you represent constituents as well. Some of those will be British citizens residing in the EU, but also you will be thinking about your own nationals who are residing in the UK, and this cloud of uncertainty is certainly worrying. You would also expect, parliamentarians to be quite forthright, to be, talking very forcefully about the EU, also needing to stand up for its values, stand up for itself. It's expected. But as I said, those negotiations, what is actually happening behind closed doors, no one really knows apart from those who are actually sitting in the room and negotiating.
So what's your best guess at the moment? The UK leaves the EU on October the 31st with or without a deal?
Well, I'm not one to take bets, particularly in this sort of never-ending saga. But what I would say is clearly both sides want a deal, and you hear that there's appetite to hold talks. But of course, the room for manoeuvre is quite small and time is short. So what are the options that are available? You're hearing reports about sort of Northern Ireland-specific provisions, or perhaps a return to a Northern Ireland-only backstop. But again, we come back to that key problem, which is, can we find a deal that's acceptable to EU leaders? Okay. And will that deal, if the deal comes back, make it through the UK Parliament? And at the moment, it's far too early, I think, to say.
Georgina, many thanks. Georgina Wright, Senior Brexit researcher from the Institute for Government, a think tank based here in London. Now, it was meant to be a turning point for Afghanistan, the Taliban and the US on the brink of an agreement on the phased withdrawal of foreign troops, followed by a ceasefire in a nation which has been at war for 18 years. However, the negotiations were brought to a halt by President Trump earlier this month following the killing of an American soldier. Now, the Afghan Taliban's chief negotiator has called on Mr. Trump to change his mind. In a rare interview, Sher Abbas Mohammed Stanigzai said ending the war was in the interests of the US and the Taliban. Our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette, spoke from Kabul to the Taliban's chief negotiator, who is in Doha.
We say that the negotiation is the only way for peace in Afghanistan. So that's why we have started negotiation with the American side. So we hope that the American side, they should, especially Mr. President, Mr. Trump should listen to his negotiation team, head of the negotiation team, Mr. Khalilzad, and he should ask the report from him. But I know that there are some lobbies and some people which are against peace in Afghanistan because they see their own business in the war in Afghanistan. And we hope that Mr. Trump should not listen to those people to continue the war in Afghanistan, because the war is not in their interest, and it is, as well as it is not in our interest.
The Americans say that the negotiating process is dead. What do you say?
From our side, our doors are open for negotiations. So we hope the other side also rethink their decision regarding negotiations.
But they say they need more proof. Why not show that you can stop your fighters from carrying out attacks? Why not don't you make a gesture?
You see, this applies to both sides. Why the foreign forces cannot stop the fighting? Every day there are tens of air raids and bombardments and target killings and civilian bombardment and all these things is going on from both sides.
Why are you going to Russia, and we understand to China? What are you trying to do now?
We would like to seek their help regarding peace. we had a trip to Russia, and we have discussed peace, how we can bring peace in Afghanistan. Because of the last decision by the American side, it was one-side decision. So we requested them that they should work on this. So they have promised us, Russia has promised, and other friendly countries, they are also working hard on this, that the peace agreement which was finalized by both sides, this should be implemented, and they are trying that the war should end peacefully and through negotiations in Afghanistan.
That was Sher Abbas Mohammed Stanikzai, the Afghan Taliban's chief negotiator, speaking to our chief international correspondent, Lise Doucette. And a reminder of our headlines this hour. The head of the European Commission has told MEPs that with 6 weeks to go until Brexit, no real progress has been made in talks with Britain. Israel's second general election in months has produced no clear winner. We'll have more on that story later in this edition of World Update. And Saudi Arabia's new ambassador in London has warned against a hasty response to the attack on his country's oil industry, saying another war is the last thing the region needs. You're listening to World Update, coming to you live from the BBC in London. You're listening to World Update, coming to you live from the BBC in London. Pregnant women are already advised to avoid alcohol, nicotine and other drugs because of the risk to their unborn child. Now add to that list air pollution. A scientific study has found that some air pollution can cross the placenta in pregnant women, exposing unborn babies directly to black carbon tiny soot particles. I spoke to Professor Tim Navrot, lead author of the study.
We identified within the placenta at the fetal site soot particles. This means that they are able to go from the mother lungs to the fetus, and so this is a direct exposure during a very vulnerable period of life, because the organs of the upgrowing child are in fully development at that stage.
So this is the mother inhaling soot particles, which then travel through her body and end up in the placenta.
Yeah, that's true. So we consider that for some toxicants, the placenta can be a barrier that toxicants cannot go through. But for soot particles, we now have found that this is not the case, that they can reach the fetal site.
Were you surprised at your findings?
Well, we have last year we demonstrated already that even at very low concentrations in children, we identified soot particles in their urine. And because if you can find it in urine of children, this means that they translocate from the lungs to the urine. But to get in the urine, actually, is already an indication that they can go to all organ systems. And then we were specifically interested to see whether this is also true during prenatal life, and therefore we studied this placenta tissue. So I was not completely surprised, but it's of course important to know, because I think that air pollution standards should not be developed for, let's say, healthy 30-year-old persons, but really look into this most vulnerable period of life.
So what are the implications both for the pregnant woman and indeed the unborn baby?
Well, people have to breathe, so maybe this sounds a little bit like, what are the practical implications directly for pregnant women? It's difficult to avoid air pollution if you are surrounded by pollution, because you have to breathe. So I think that this, in general, this needs get attention from further policy regulation to lower the concentrations. If people now want to do something directly, some practical advice is like, if you travel throughout the city by cycling or walking, maybe you can just choose a parallel street with less traffic, because even within cities there's much contrast. The concentrations can be very high close to major roads, and then even in a parallel street, they can be much lower.
But how do the presence of these tiny soot particles in the placenta affect the development of the unborn baby?
Well, this is something that we have to further to investigate. Now, this method allows that we can measure it. We have a very sensitive and specific method to quantify the exact exposure during prenatal life. Previous research based on modeled air pollution in ambient air showed already detrimental health effects of air pollution well over the life course, but also in newborns, showing a lower birth weight, higher degree of miscarriages. Also, cognitive function is affected by prenatal air pollution exposure. So with this method now, we believe that we can further investigate also whether is there a safe level of these particles with regard to DNA damage, etc.
Is there an increased risk of miscarriage?
Well, this is not in our study identified, but there is a recent large study in the US, and they find that higher ambient air pollution concentrations during prenatal life or during pregnancy induces miscarriage.
That was Professor Tim Navrot. The drone attacks on Saudi Arabia's oil installations are an attack on the whole world and its economy, and Iran was most likely behind them.
This
That's
is
according
Starr Radio
to the newly
UK.
appointed Saudi ambassador to the United Kingdom, Prince Khalid bin Bandar. He's been speaking to the BBC's Frank Gardner, and he joins me now.
Hi there, this is
It's,
CJ
not often that we
Buckman,
hear
your
from
life
senior
coach. And whenever I'm in London, I listen to Starr Radio UK right here. But guess what? You can listen to wherever you are.
Summit 2019, UK meets USA, an historic two-day community event. Network with music industry professionals and experience outstanding performances from up-and-coming British and American artists on October the 11th and 12th at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, London. Book your tickets now on eventbrite.com.
Are you looking to deliver that urgent package? And intact Connect Time Logistics guarantees reliable, fast, secure, and time-sensitive door-to-door delivery services across Ghana, Africa, and indeed worldwide. Our services include air and sea cargo, vehicle shipping, and excess baggage. Connect Time Logistics has a specialized and dedicated customer service team to ensure prompt delivery to your door. Call our London office
+44 208 291 7575 or +44 208 858 6600.
Book online at www.connect-ta.com. Connect Time Logistics, connecting the dots in worldwide professional delivery services.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour show is your best source into the property industry.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International are proud to present Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, a historic event happening on Friday and Saturday the 11th and 12th of October at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, Westminster, London. Come and take part in musical workshops and panel discussions. Experience vibrant performances from up-and-coming UK and USA independent artists, groups and choirs. Special guest artists include from the USA, Wendy Henderson Wyatt, Carolyn Traylor, Charles Woolfall and Alicia Moore. From the UK, Olga Argo, Birmingham Community Gospel Choir, James Adams, Sam Adebanjo and Joshua Kessler. Your hosts are Ibe Giankiller and Madeline Kurza from Premier Gospel. This is an event not to be missed. You can purchase your tickets from Eventbrite. For more information, visit gesummitintl.com.
I believe in the sun. I
What's the hidden truth or mysteries behind the supernatural? Do angels really exist today? Is healings and miracles real? Can I hear the voice of God? Was there inspirations and challenges in ministry? Can my eyes be open to see beyond the natural? Can I operate in the gifts of the Holy Spirit? Can my dreams contain messages from God? My Journey is your one-stop destination to the supernatural on Starr Radio UK. Join your host, Captain Tete, this and every Saturday from 4 p.m. on My Journey, your one-stop destination to the supernatural.
Hello, good people. I'm back again, and this time it's about Mama's Choice Fufu Mix. It comes in 2 flavors, and it contains essential minerals and vitamins. It's gluten-free. You can grab one from the nearest Afro-Caribbean shop or the corner shop next to you. Insist it's Mama's Choice. It's certified by both the US and the UK Food Standard Boards. Grab one for yourself today. Mama's Choice. Ubedisa Charlie.
Listen to Aunties Mary, Lottie and Regina on the Family Enrichment Programme on Starr Radio UK. This and every Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m.
Some people are weak because don't make it your business going about revealing
people's secrets. Don't be a busybody.
And some people. Today's typical family is under pressure from various directions. Divorce is on the increase. More and more of the Afro-Caribbean youth are taking to crime, etc. The Family Enrichment Programme brings together a team of qualified experts to discuss and shed light on how we can make our families better and stronger. It is said the family can do without the society, but the society can't. Listen to the Family Enrichment Programme this and every Saturday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Starr Radio UK, your favourite Afro-Caribbean radio station in London.
Download our app in iTunes and the Google Play Store.
What's the hidden truth or mysteries behind the supernatural? Do angels really exist today? Is healings and miracles real? Can I hear the voice of God? Was there inspirations and challenges in ministry? Can my eyes be open to see beyond the natural? Can I operate in the gifts of the Holy Spirit? Can my dreams contain messages from God? My Journey is your one-stop destination to the supernatural on Starr Radio UK. Join your host, Captain Tete, this and every Saturday from 4 p.m. on My Journey, your one-stop destination to the supernatural.
Hi there, this is CJ Buckman, your life coach. And whenever I'm in London, I listen to Starr Radio UK right here. But guess what? You can listen to wherever you are.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International are proud to present Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, a historic event happening on Friday and Saturday the 11th and 12th of October at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, Westminster, London. Come and take part in musical workshops and panel discussions. Experience vibrant performances from up-and-coming UK and USA independent artists, groups and choirs. Special guest artists include from the USA, Wendy Henderson Wyatt, Carolyn Traylor, Charles Woolfall and Alicia Moore. From the UK, Olga Argo, Birmingham Community Gospel Choir, James Adams, Sam Adebanjo and Joshua Kessler. Your hosts are Ibe Jai-Killer and Madeline Kurzler from Premier Gospel. This is an event not to be missed. You can purchase your tickets from Eventbrite. For more information, visit gesummitintl.com.
This is Starr Radio UK.
Broadcasting worldwide, online 24/7.
All around the world. In your car.
At work.
At home.
On your smartphone.
This is Starr Radio UK.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, your heart is aching. Smile even though it's breaking. When there are clouds in the sky, you get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you find that life is still worthwhile. If you just smile. Hey, this is Archie, and you're listening to Starr Radio UK.
Radio UK.
Yes, good morning, wherever you are. Today is Wednesday, the 18th day of September 2019. The time now 10:37 from the hearts of London. Of course, it is the Starr Radio UK Wednesday edition of the morning show. Really want to know who I am? Don't you worry, I will let you know in a jiffy. But let me say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn to you wherever you might be on planet Earth. And lots of you on other planets as well. I salute you and I say a massive hello to you. But let me take this opportunity to say good morning to my colleague, Group President Mr. Frank David, to Mr. Olayomi Koiki, to Felix all the way in Aberdeen, Mr. Kofi Ali, Ambassador Lad for ECOWAS, Mr. Malik Drumani Mahama, Mr. Champion Paul and Tilizi. I hear back if you say good morning to you all. And let me also take this opportunity to say good morning to a very, very good close friend of mine. Yesterday she did call. Mama Lane, wherever you are, massive good morning to you. I hope you are doing well. And let me say good morning to Mr. Ankuma, your better half. Okay, to Pastor Emmanuel Chidi, man of God, thank you very much for your support all the time. We really, really appreciate your support for Starr Radio UK. Like I say all the time, anytime there's a program on, he is there to support us. My goodness. And let me say good morning to my apostle, Brother HB, wherever you are. Good morning to you. Auntie Mary, Mom, massive good morning to you. And let me also take this opportunity to say good morning to my lovely wife, Lottie, wherever you are. Hope you are doing very well. To Empress Regina and Lady C, Lady Caroline, I hope you're all doing good. My able producer, Oba Frances, good morning. Let me also take this opportunity to say good morning to the one and only Gina Latte and your wonderful husband, Eddie, and the kids. We salute you all. We say massive good morning to you. And to your colleagues at the uni, you say you are studying. Yeah, that's a wonderful one. To my Bishop, Reverend Dr. Francis Okonunu, and Mama Eugenia Nunu, all of Revival City Church, I salute you. I hope you are doing very, very well. Pastor Samuel Lamjay, good morning to you and the family. All the way in MK. Pastor Salome Ado and Pastor Joseph Ado, all of Bible Life Family Ministries, there will salute you. But you know what you can do for me this morning? Share the page with your friends and loved ones and invite them to like our pages as well, if you are on Facebook. But those of you on other smart means of listening to us, share the links with them. On our YouTube channel, like I said the other time, please, 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 we are not transmitting live because we want you to subscribe to our page, to our channel. So please make sure you do so. Okie dokie do. So, by way of program, I'll bring you the quote for the day, the weather forecast, and then the travel updates. We then move on to bring you some lovely music. At 11 o'clock exactly, we'll be having Mr. Laimi Koiki joining us. But as it is a Wednesday program, 11:30 exactly, I open the lines. And at 12 o'clock, we bring the first part of the program to a close. We'll then take you or bring you the Libdem's conference that is ongoing. We'll bring you the speech that their leader, Joel Swinson, gave yesterday, and a lot more from that front. So as normally we would have taken you to the House of Parliament, we'll be taking you to some of the conferences that is happening. But as you know, it's all unraveling. It's the Supreme Court sitting in England, court going to say, hey, we've seen that the proroguing of Parliament was unlawful, or the Prime Minister had an ulterior motive. Now, if that is what is happening, that and a lot more will be bringing your way as well. But this afternoon, exactly at 1 o'clock, Ife Popola will also be coming your way with What's Next? It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London.
This is Starr Radio UK. In your car,
At work,
at home,
on your smartphone.
Okay, so let me tell you what is happening when it comes to the quote for the day. What is it all about? It says whether a situation is personal or business related, you need certain standards and value you believe in, which you can rely upon when everything around you is not going well. Let me reiterate. Whether a situation is personal or business related, you need certain standards and values you believe in, which you can rely upon when everything around you is not going well. So what is yours? What is mine? Share it with us. Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Let me tell you what is happening on the weather front. 10:43 is the time. It's going to be a fine, dry day through this afternoon with plenty of sunshine and only a few patches of cloud, feeling pleasant in the sunshine with light winds. Tonight, cloud perhaps building from north at times, but there will be further clear intervals, a chilly feel under clearer skies with a few mist and fog patches forming towards dawn. So let's look at the temperatures. What is the temperature, or what has the temperature have in stock for us? Temperature is going to be 20 degrees, the lowest is going to be 9 degrees. UV level is going to be moderate, pollution is going to be low. Sunset is going to be 19:09, and sunrise for tomorrow morning is going to be another 1:06:39 hours. It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. It's now 10:44. A quick commercial break, and I take you straight to the road. Stay tuned and don't touch the dial.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International presents Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, an historic 2-day community event networked with music industry professionals and experience outstanding performances from up-and-coming British and American artists on October the 11th and 12th at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, London. Book your tickets now on eventbrite.com.
Okay, so keep your eyes on the roads, I'll keep you navigated. I promise I'll on the Starr Radio UK travel update that comes your way every weekday from 10:45. It's not 10:45. Okay. Apart from the Circle, Hammersmith and Metropolitan lines, Bakerloo, Central, District, Jubilee, Northern, Piccadilly, Victoria, Waterloo and City lines are all in good service. London Overground, TFL, Rail, DLR, London Tramlink in good service there as well. So what is happening on the Circle, Hammersmith and City and Metropolitan lines? Now there are minor delays due to a signal failure at Baker Street for the Circle line. Now moving on to the Hammersmith and City line as well. Minor delays due to a signal failure at Baker Street. And then the Metropolitan line. There are severe delays and minor delays when it comes to severe delays between Harrow on the Hill and Uxbridge, and minor delays on the rest of the line due to a signal failure at Baker Street. Your tickets will be accepted on buses. But keep your eyes on the roads, and we'll keep you navigated. I promise I'll be on the Starr Radio UK travel update that comes your way every weekday from 10:45. Now let's move on to the river bus. My favorite means of transport, and let's see what is happening on the river bus. Fortunately, as it normally is, RB1, RB1X, RB2, RB4, RB5, RB6 will literally are all in good service. Now moving on to the National Rail. Island Line has got special service. That's my first time of seeing the Island Line, you know. And then we have the Southwestern Railway that's got severe delays, and Southeastern minor delays. But keep your eyes on the roads, and we'll keep you navigated. I promise our bond. The Starr Radio UK travel update that comes your way every weekday from 10:45. Okay, now so let's go to the major roads in London. Let me tell you what is happening on that front. When it comes to the major roads in London, A10 has got closures, A23, closures, A24, closures, A3, closures, A4, closures, A40, closures, Central London Red routes, closures there as well. Well, you'll find out that where you are, I've not tagged on that. You know why? Well, I want you to share with us what is happening on the travel this morning, whether it's the day or night, wherever you are. Whether in Accra or Zanzibar, share it with us. So, on that note, let me say good morning to you. Enjoy your commute for today. But you know what? Keep those eyes on the road.
Are you looking to deliver that urgent package and intact? Connect Time Logistics guarantees reliable, fast, secure, and time-sensitive door-to-door delivery services across Ghana, Africa, and indeed worldwide. Our services include air and sea cargo, vehicle shipping, and excess baggage. Connect Time Logistics has a specialized and dedicated customer service team to ensure prompt delivery to your door. Call our London office
+44208 291 7575 or +44208 858 6600.
Book online at www.connect-ta.com. Connect Time Logistics, connecting the dots in worldwide professional delivery services.
Hello, good people. I'm back again, and this time it's about Mama's Choice Fufu Mix. It comes in 2 flavors, and it contains essential minerals and vitamins. It's gluten-free. You can grab one from the nearest Afro-Caribbean shop or the corner shop next to you. Insist it's Mama's Choice. It's certified by both the US and the UK Food Standard Boards. Grab one for yourself today. Mama's Choice. Ubedisa Charlie.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International are proud to present Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, a historic event happening on Friday and Saturday the 11th and 12th of October at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, Westminster, London. Come and take part in musical workshops and panel discussions. Experience vibrant performances from up-and-coming UK and USA independent artists, groups and choirs. Special guest artists include from the USA, Wendy Henderson Wyatt, Carolyn Traylor, Charles Woolfall and Alicia Moore. From the UK, Olga Argo, Birmingham Community Gospel Choir, James Adams, Sam Adebanjo and Joshua Kessler. Your hosts are Ibe Jaikila and Madeline Kurza from Premier Gospel. This is an event not to be missed. You can purchase your tickets from Eventbrite. For more information, visit gesummitintl.com.
Welcome back to the program. It is Starr Radio UK. It's now 10:51 from the hearts of London, and it is the Wednesday edition of the morning show. Of course, I am
the one and only
Archie on Starr Radio UK. Nobody does it better. Welcome back to the program, and it's now time for me to bring you my first carefully selected choice of song. One that I want to give thanks to the Almighty God. Yeah, with you, of course, in mind. What do you think about that? Okay, and this is from Koda, and it says, Made Away. It's a cover version of Travis Green's song. Enjoy, and I'll be with you.
This is the morning show with Archie.
You got this figured out. You watching us now. And when it looks as if we can't win, you wrap us in your arms and you step in. And everything we need you supply. You've got this in control. And now we know that you made a way. When I because you made a way. My Jesus, you made a way.
Now we're here, looking back on where we come from. Because of you and nothing we've done to deserve the love and mercy you've shown. But your grace was strong enough to pick us up. You made a way when our backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over. You made a way, and we're standing here only because you made. You made a way
When our backs were against the wall,
when our backs were against the wall and it looked as if it was over.
you Jesus, you made a way.
Made a way.
And we're standing here today.
Standing here only because you made.
In your car, at home.
On your smartphone.
With your power, you perform miracles. There is nothing, oh no, that's impossible. And we're standing here only because you made. Say,
You move mountains.
yes, you did, yes, you
You
did.
cause the walls to fall with your power.
Resurrection power, Jesus. You perform
Miracles. There is
miracles.
nothing
Nothing, no, no,
that's
no, no.
impossible. And we're standing here only because you
And
made.
we're standing
And we're
here.
standing here only because you
The devil
made.
tried
And
everything,
we're
but we're
standing
standing
here
here.
only because you
Then
made.
we're standing
And we're standing
here.
You are listening to Star Radio Morning Show.
here only because you
One
made.
more time, saying you
Made a way
when our backs were against the wall.
when our backs were against the wall
And
and it looked as if it was
you
over.
Jesus, you made a way.
Made a way.
And we're standing here today.
And we're standing here only because you made
For your
a way.
movements, you cause walls to fall with your power. You perform miracles. There is nothing, oh no, that's impossible. And we're standing here only because you made. Say,
You move mountains.
yes, you did, yes, you
You
did.
cause the walls to fall with your power.
Resurrection power, Jesus. You perform
Miracles. There is
miracles.
nothing
Nothing, no, no,
that's
no, no.
impossible.
And
And we're standing here only because you
we're
made.
standing
And we're
here.
standing here only because you
The devil
made.
tried everything, but we're standing here.
Only because you
Then
made.
we're standing
And we're standing
here.
This is Star Radio.
Only because you, my Jesus. Can I get some horns? Don't know how, but you did it.
Don't know how, but you did it.
Said I don't know how, but you did it. And I don't know how,
but you did it.
I was sinking deep in sin, but Jesus,
But you did it.
no money in my pocket, no food on my table.
Don't know how, but you did it.
I don't know.
I call you my way maker, my strong tower. You made a way.
Hey, I call you my way maker, my strong tower. You made a way. One more before we go. Say, I call you my deliverer, my prince, your family.
Yeah, like you said, one more before we go. Now, one more before we go. Let me take this opportunity to say good morning to Mr. Dave West, Maestro.
Walls to fall with your power.
Resurrection power, Jesus.
And I climb one all the way in Brum, Ghana.
And we're standing here only because you made. And we're standing here only because you made. And we're standing.
But this evening is going to be happening live here on Star Radio UK.
And we're standing here only because you, my Jesus, made.
It's going to be another edition of the Niger Voices. By the one and only Mr. Olayomi Koiki, your regular presenter of Niger Voices. But now it's almost 6:03 towards 11 o'clock. And it is the Wednesday edition of the morning show.
I don't know how, but you did it. I don't know how.
And like I announced earlier on, as you know, the program finishes today at 12 o'clock.
When our backs were against the wall and looked as if it was over, you
There are lots happening.
made a way.
But let me bring you some of the headlines this morning. And then we'll move on with the show. Whilst we are waiting for Mr. Olaimi Koike to join us.
My Jesus, you made a way. Now we here.
Now it says, Fayoshe government left 57 billion naira unpaid workers' salaries. Pension arrears, says Fayemi. I've spent 470 million naira to begin court martial of former GOC over missing 400 million naira. This another story developing in Nigeria. 26-year-old others tipped as commissioners in Kwara State. Interesting times.
And we're standing here only because you made.
But the updates from Nigeria is sponsored by the Koiki Removal Services. And it says, relax and let our professional movers take care of your move. And they will make removal services easier than you think.
And we're standing here today. And we're standing here only because you made. For your movement.
But here in the UK, it's all happening. The case continues unabated in the Supreme Court. Well, we have justices of the Supreme Court, 11 justices of the Supreme Court sitting to listen to that case. But today we will have the defense attorneys presenting their case there. But yesterday it was interesting, following everything that was going on. But one other interesting story that is making the rounds today is the speech that Joe Swinson, the leader of the Lib Dem, made yesterday. People are asking, does she really think that she can be the next Prime Minister of the UK? Well, others are saying that because she's taking a stand with her party that, look, we are for Remain. So definitely, there will be some people who would definitely vouch or vote for them.
Now we're here, looking back on where we come from. Because of you and nothing we've done.
But when it comes to Ghana, there are still calls for Tiwa, Miss Tiwa, to resign. But don't you worry, I'll be bringing you more of that in a jiffy. But at the moment, I've gone with me, Mr. Olayomi Koiki, who is all well dressed, ready to bring you the updates from Nigeria.
And we're standing here only because you made a way.
Well, so I hope that you've enjoyed the tune from Koda that says you made a way. So, well, it doesn't matter the challenges that you are going through today. Maybe you think that it's unsurmountable, or whatever it is, relax and remember. The heart of a man plans his ways, but it takes God to establish your footsteps. So don't relegate God to the background. Work hard, but still bring God into the midst of it. And I can tell you that things can change for you. On that note, let me say good morning to my colleague and co-presenter, Mr. Olayomi Koiki, who is all ready to bring you the Niger. What did I say? Update from Niger. Yomi, massive good morning to you.
Very good morning, Mr. Archie, and another Wednesday. Yes, a very, very good morning to all our viewers and our listeners around the globe. And we welcome you to the Breakfast Show, where we bring you what is happening in Nigeria and what is happening to the Nigerian community right here in United Kingdom. And it's good to be back again, this particular morning. And I'll now go back again to you in the studio.
Yes. Nice to have you. How has your morning been?
Well, a very bright one, as you can see. Sometimes, after a very hard work, didn't get home till about 11 p.m. yesterday, but that is the way it is. Like I was saying, it's almost an hour before I realized that I have not even put a post out to wish my younger brother a 40th birthday.
Oh my goodness!
And I got caught up with all the hard work that we are trying to do for the community.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope he had a very good 40th birthday in Lagos, and we hope to see him very soon, very, very soon as well. But yes, it's been a very bright morning, and yes, quite a lot that we'll be looking at this morning, from the presidency to the PDP to Omoyele Sowore. What is happening again? There is a protest as I speak right now going on at the Nigerian High Commission in protest against the detention of Sowore. There's also one that took place at Italy as well. Quite a lot is happening, and we'll be looking at all that only on the Breakfast Show this morning.
Okay, listen, it is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. And it is now 5 minutes past 11. Updates from Nigeria, being sponsored by Koiki Removal Services. Now, let's move on to the stories making the rounds this morning. Now, first and foremost, Omoyele Sowore, I always have it a mouthful for me, don't you worry. I miss my R's and my L's. Now, what exactly is happening? What has been the update from the, is it the EFCC or the organization that's holding him?
Well, like we did mention a couple of, days back, he's been detained for 45 days. That is almost coming up to an end, whether, the Department for State Security will be requesting for more days. They wanted to have 3 months, but that was thrown out of the court. His lawyer are doing everything as well to see if they can get a bail for him, but that is not yet possible. But again, as I speak right now, I could take you to a live audio right at the Nigerian embassy, where I can tell you that there is, a protest, taking place. Huge numbers of people down there. We couldn't make it down because of some other activities that we have as well. But that is the situation. Also, I was reading this morning also that there is a kind of a lockdown from the premises of Sahara Reports office in Nigeria. Reason behind that, not sure why, but that is the latest update that we have in regard to the detention of Omoyele Sowore, the candidate for the African National Congress party, the election that took place just about a few months back.
What has his solicitors said about him, about his health, and what have they said about him? Is he okay? Is he psychologically whatever? What is happening to him? What is happening? Yeah.
Well, we know that he was allowed, to have his own meal and have individuals that will be also paying a visit to him. And let me just take a bit from what the Vanguard is saying this morning. A list of Omoyele Sowore is abandoned to government enforcer. It has been several weeks, since Omoyele Sowore, a leader of the Revolutionary Now campaign and the presidential candidate of the African National Congress, was taken into detention. As the matter stands, Sowore is still a prisoner of conscience. He's been held for nothing more than the ideal he exposed. We must continue to call attention for him, for he has done nothing to justify his incarceration. A man could and should not be arrested for merely ventilating that is intolerant of the worst kind of part of his, persecutor. So that is coming from the Vanguard this morning. Let's see, maybe we might take one as well. And this is, coming from, his own platform as well, which is, the Sahara Reporter, a very well-known media, not just only in Nigeria, but also across the world as well. But one thing is, like I did mention, there was, news coming out this morning that, and let me see if I can get anything from, his own platform while that is loading. I can tell you, yes, I've got it here. Under siege, Nigeria President Buhari sent more security operative to Sahara Reporter office. As of now, more security agents from the Special Anti-Robbery and Anti-Cultism Squad have joined their colleagues in trying to arrest journalists working with the organization. Nigerian President Muhammad Buhari has sent more operatives to lay siege on the Sahara Reporter's office. Earlier this morning, security agents, including policemen and soldiers, tried to bring down the online news platform Office Gate in a bid to calm down on Sahara Reporter. And now go back again to you in the studio, Mr. Ache.
Now, finally, before we leave that story, how has his supporters and members of his party, how have they been? Are they still supporting? Are they on protest? What I know that there's a protest going on here in the Nigerian High Commission here in the UK, but the problem is what is happening back home, or have they been cracked down that they cannot do anything?
Well, yes, I mean, we've seen, more individuals and more groups of people still protesting in Nigeria, in as much as, is not in a large scale, but there is still, protests going on as well in Nigeria. And likewise, like you said, right in front of my screen that I'm watching here, there is a protest going on at the Nigerian High Commission in London. I could see the police van pulling over as well. It's not the first time, protests happening at the, each embassies around the country. But there is almost, one taking place right now at the Nigerian High Commission in London. And also I saw one, I think in Italy, where the protest took place as well yesterday.
Well, listeners, it is Starr Radio UK. God willing, tomorrow we'll go more into this Sowere's arrest and everything that is going on as to whether after the 45 days elapsed, he's going to be released, or if the security is trying to hold him still there. What are their reasons? If he's guilty, why don't you charge him and then just get on with it? Well, it is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, let's move on to some of the other stories making the rounds. Fayose's government left 57 billion naira unpaid workers' salaries, pension, arrears, says Fayemi. So Fayose, that's Fayemi against Fayose. Now, can you give us a bit of a background and tell us more about that?
A lot of us will remember Fayose, a very critiques of the government while he was in office. We haven't had much of him since he left office. He was detained at some time. He also accused the president of not greeting him during his birthday.
Yeah,
quite a lot of during his time as the governor of Ekiti State. So, but and each time a new governor comes in, they are looking at what is left over and the handing over of bills and wages and all that. But it seems he has left, according to the report this morning by the current governor of Ekiti State, who is also the governor, the chairman of the Governor Forum. I think I spoke about it, if not yesterday or day before yesterday, that I listened to an interview he gave a couple of days ago. And Fayose left 57 billion naira unpaid workers' salary, pension, and arrears. That is coming from the governor, Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State, on Tuesday, said that workers in the state civil service were currently being owed 57 billion, amounting to arrears of salaries and emoluments. The governor said this at a meeting he held with the civil servants as well as cross-section of the labor leaders at the government house. There's always these issues where, if a state is not making enough of IGR, internal generated revenue, just like Lagos State and maybe Port Harcourt and some other states as well, is a big issue. And why that was unpaid, I'm sure is something that we can continue to discuss forever. But it's not the first time that we saw also in Ogun State, where the previous governor also left amount of bills unpaid for the new governor taking over.
Interesting. But Ekiti State, what do they produce there?
Every state in Nigeria has different thing that they produce. And Ekiti State, for those that might want to know a little bit more, let's just give you a background of what Ekiti State. Ekiti State is in the southwest region of Nigeria, and this was this was declared on the 1st of October 1996, alongside 5 other states in the country during the military government of the late General Sani Abacha that a lot of us will remember. As one of the newest states of Nigerian Federation, it was carved out of Ondo State. Ondo State has a lot of resources as well. Ekiti State has got 12 local government as well. And there has been a lot of issues, following a prolonged political crisis. And I'm just taking back a little bit. President Olusegun Obasanjo imposed a military administrator, and that was in 2006 up to 2007 as well. We know Ekiti was an independent state prior to British conquest. It was one of the many Yoruba states in what is today Nigeria. The Ekiti people, as a nation and district of Yoruba race, trace some of their progress to Oduduwa. And when you look at an Ekiti individual, indigene, they are well qualified. I mean, when I talk about education, they don't joke at all with education. So that is part of a bit of history of Ekiti State, and we can go on and on and on. Climate and vegetation: the state enjoy a tropical climate with 2 distinct seasons. There are rainy season April to October, and the dry season from November to March. Maybe they could use that as an opportunity, for farming and all sorts. But like I said, it all depends on each of the governors trying to transform the state to bring more internal generated revenue, and they can pay workers. Because you wonder why, if a worker doesn't get paid, they got bills as well to take care of, and that's part of the corruption that kicks in as well. And I'll go back again to you in the studio. This is Star Radio UK.
Listeners, it's Star Radio UK. The updates from Nigeria are sponsored by Koiki Removal Services, and they say removal services made simpler than you think. Now, Yomi, let's look at some of the other stories. Which ones are making the rounds there, please?
Let's just take you through. The President, Muhammad Buhari, has received the annual report of the Police Service Commission yesterday, and we can take you to one of the little bit of the audio clip of that.
He said steadily but surely a well-productive Nigeria police force is emerging, and without doubt will attract the endorsement of all Nigerians.
The Commission is still determined to give the nation a police force it desires and we're proud of. At no time, even in the face of odds, will it shirk this very important responsibility. I want to assure Mr. President of our commitment and determination to make a success of this challenging national assignment. Let me also pledge our unwavering loyalty and dedication to the Nigerian nation.
He said the recruitment of 10,000 constables approved by government will soon be finalized, but made a case for intervention in the areas of poor funding, poor remuneration of the commission staff, as well as the biting office accommodation crisis. President Muhammad Buhari promised that the commission's report will be looked into with a view to strengthening its operations.
Your assignment is enormous and calls for sacrifice and commitment, especially now that nearly every country is faced with severe internal security challenges.
And that is, the update from the president yesterday receiving the police commission report. Also, let's take you into some other stories as well from the presidency that we can go into more of the other updates as well. President Buhari has dissolved the Special Presidential Investigation Panel for Recovery of Public Property. We've seen individuals, that have stolen so much, and then there was a panel that was set up to look into this. But sometimes, a panel is set up, and then sometimes corruption goes in. And the President Buhari has dissolved the Special Presidential Investigation Panel for Recovery of Public Property as currently constituted, with Mr. Obona Obala as the chairman. And the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice has been directed to immediately take over all outstanding investigation and other activities. The panel was established in August 2017 by the then acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, SAN, to investigate specifically mandate cases of corruption, abuse of office, and similar offenses by the public officers. President Buhari thanks all the members of the dissolved panel for their service, and the president looks forward for receiving final independent corrupt practice and other related offenses commission report on the outgoing investigation. I think you might want to talk on that before we move into some other of the, because when it comes to corruption cases, we don't know the reason why this was dissolved and now handed over to the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice. But this is a really critical case, and a lot of Nigerians will be following that to know the final conclusion of who is included in some of these corrupt actions that have taken place and looted so much out of Nigeria. I go back now to you in the studio.
Well, listen to Starr Radio UK. Interesting times. Now, this panel that has been dissolved by the president. Now, first of all, you did mention the fact that it was the vice president who set it up. I mean, when he was an interim president, that's when I think the president was in the UK for health treatment. Now, the question is, why did he set it up? Are there other bodies that see to investigate? We know we have is it the EFCC? Who sees
the ICPC that was just mentioned as well in that update.
Yes. Yeah, that saw to the investigation of corrupt practices and maybe a recouping of such things. So why did they form this body, and how come? Has anyone been even charged or found guilty of corruption from these bodies?
Well, that is where we will receive the final independent, report, according to this press, released by Femi Adesina. Yes, it was set up last year, 2 years ago, August 2017. And you wonder, it's almost coming up to 2 years exactly that this was set up. How come it has dragged its foot? What has gone wrong? And what could be the reason behind the president now, overriding what was set up by the, then acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the vice president. This was almost going to create a kind of confusion, I think, on the social media yesterday. And it did clarify later on, that there's no kind of misunderstanding between the president and his vice. It's just that sometimes the president has the prerogative to decide on some issues relating to the internal and foreign affairs of the country.
But from the top of your head, do you remember anyone who faced the panel? I mean, I know that there are others that the president is saying, well, the final report is going to come. That you can just say, oh, this person was there, whether he was cleared or not. Is there anything like that sort?
Well, that's I don't have any information of who attended the panel or whether this was just done or invited, because sometimes when it comes to corruption cases and when they're big man, you can't just name them and you can't just bring them to the limelight. We're following the proceeding at this in UK right now, where the prime minister is already been taken to the court for trying to close the parliament. And you wonder, we will get to that stage, but to name a corrupt individual is a very, very tough task. I'll go back to you in the studio so that we can continue with the update, as I know we have a limited time today, Wednesday edition of the show.
Yes, listen to Starr Radio UK, the Wednesday edition of the morning show. With me in the studio, it's me in the studio, and Mr. Olami Kweke reporting live from Edmonton to you. Now, let's go back to Yomi so that you can finish with the other reports. Which other headlines are making the rounds, sir?
Yes, let's quickly touch on some other updates and we see if we can look into some of them. Niger police nabbed 5 over alleged murder of suspected abductor. Also, there has been another attack of Boko Haram in Borno State, and that is also, making the rounds as well. Let's now take a look at some other stories as well. The NDLEA bosses emerge force vice chairman Africa Drug Enforcement Agency. The minister Ngige, IPOB can't attack me outside Nigeria. That is coming from Ngige. Osinbajo has always followed due process. That's the vice president office, and I believe, still relate to the story that, regarding the suspension of the corruption practice. So let me take a little bit into to see what that story is all about. The office of the vice president, Yemi Osinbajo, denied on Tuesday that the VP often flouted due process, a reason President Buhari directed him to seek his approval before taking decision on any agency under his watch. And the online media, the cable, said on Tuesday that a Monday memo from Buhari to his deputy contained the directive and also suggested that during Buhari's first term, the VP was known to subvert due process. So the VP office is denying that as well, just like we mentioned about a few minutes ago. Let's take a look at what is happening in the business world in Nigeria. 4 banks generated 24.3 billion from account maintenance charges. That is a huge amount of money. Yesterday we said 72 billion was lost by almost less than 2,000 individuals and contractors by not getting to the site. But 4 banks were able to take 24.3 billion just by maintaining my account and your account. I don't know whether you have an account with us, Mr. Ache, but every Nigerian that have an account back home, there's what we call the maintenance charges, and that is amount to about 24 billion naira. So a lot of money there. Also, strike looms over the minimum wage bill talks. We spoke about this yesterday. Also, the Central Bank of Nigeria begins charges on deposit withdrawal over 500,000 naira. So, if you're planning to withdraw anything from 500,000 naira, which will begin by March 2020, the APEC Bank said this is circulated to all deposited money banks in the country. He said that implementation of the policy will signal the imposition of charges. Oil prices tumbles as to $65 on Saudi recovery. Pursue ISO certification. Ministers direct the Minister of Communication, Dr. Issa Ibrahim, that also mentioned, we spoke about the millions of unregistered SIM card yesterday, is also giving a directive to all the parastatals under the ministry to attend the International Organization for Standardization Certification for Compliance with International Best Practice. The minister gave the directive, at an event held to celebrate the award of the ISO certificate to the National Information Technology. Nine Mobile to power 100 sites off grid. I'll go back now to you in the studio, Mr. Ache.
Listeners, Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now, somebody just sent me a message asking about the reaction of the vice president pertaining to the dissolving of this investigative panel that he formed in the absence of the president. And the question is, has the vice president got the mandate to do that? And we knew at the time that the president was out of the country, and he was then the acting president, or president, as we might say. How interim it was, that is another story. So did he have the mandate to do that? And if he did, now the action by the president now, is there any bad blood between them?
Well, like I did mention, the office of the vice president have already, said no to that in terms of if anyone thinks there's a kind of, not a very good cordial relationship between, the vice president and the president. And if we could remember, in the history of Nigeria, the president gave, power, to his vice, which is very uncommon. Even the governors of a state that is traveling for like 3 days will take everything with him rather than handing over, to his vice to continue, because they always this fear that maybe they might take over before they come back into the country. So, and the president handed over, most of the time he was traveling out of the country. But what could have been the reason behind, a panel that was set up by the vice president while he was the acting president in 2017 August, and 2 years down the line, could it be a kind of a Maradona, like we all say, was playing around it, or what could have happened? Well, sometimes, what could have happened is something that we will continue to speculate. So for that individual asking that question, I wish I could have the vice president to answer that question to us and give us a full answer on Niger Voices. Maybe we'll give it a try. Make sure you tune in on Niger Voices at 6 p.m. later on.
Yes, listeners, that has been Mr. Olaimi Koiki bringing you updates from Nigeria. So, Yomi, apart from what you just said, what are we looking at today on Niger Voices?
Well, we continue to look at, development, as individual. We hope to have, an individual from Ireland joining us by the name of Oluomo you'll be looking at, what can you do, to develop your community. This has been a stance that I've always, said so many times during our broadcast, that you might not be able to fix the country, you might not be able to fix every part of Nigeria, but I'm sure you could fix a bit of your own community. So let's discuss, community development. What role can you play? And that will be what we'll be looking at later on Naija Voices. So tune in from 1800 hours, where we bring Naija Voices to all our listeners around the world. And also on Friday evening, the Talking Drum, Ayo, one of the most, when it comes to, the cultural and the tradition, he has played for the royal family. Will be having his own event next month, but he's having the pre-event on Friday at the Nigerian High Commission. We might have opportunity to have one or two words with him to tell us a little bit more about the Talking Drum.
Wow. Yomi, let me say thank you very much for tuning in to this, to give us updates today.
Bye for now. And
Bye-bye.
Stay tuned on the Starr Radio Morning Show, Monday to Friday, and all other shows coming up as well. If you don't have the apps, download it, and it is free, so you can enjoy it while you are at work, so that you don't miss what is happening around you. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Listeners, that has been Mr. Laimi Koike bringing you updates from Nigeria. But the updates from Nigeria is sponsored by the Koike Removal Services, and it says, removal services made simpler than you think. Relax and let our professional movers take care of your move. Single item to full house move, man with a van hire, fixed price at hourly rate, fully insured service, parking, unpacking, assembly, disassembly of furniture, short notice and weekend availability, wide range of supplemental services, local and nationwide, public liability insurance, good transit insurance. Contact us on +44 759 405 0979 +44 759 405 0979, and they will be at your beck and call, and will make removal services simpler than you think. Let me say good morning to Mr. Dave West. Maestro, thank you very much for your support as well. Hope you are doing very well. And to the lovely Jenny, your better half, we say massive good morning to you all. But listeners, we take a quick musical break, and once we come back, we continue with the program. But it will be preceded by some commercials. Stay tuned and don't touch the dial.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International presents Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, an historic 2-day community event. Network with music industry professionals and experience outstanding performances from up-and-coming British and American artists on October the 11th and 12th at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, London. Book your tickets now on eventbrite.com.
Are you looking to deliver that urgent package and intact? Connect Time Logistics guarantees reliable, fast, secure, and time-sensitive door-to-door delivery services across Ghana, Africa, and indeed worldwide. Our services include air and sea cargo, vehicle shipping, and excess baggage. Connect Time Logistics has a specialized and dedicated customer service team to ensure prompt delivery to your door. Call our London office
+44 208 291 7575 or +44 208 858 6600.
Book online at www.connect-ta.com. Connect Time Logistics, connecting the dots in worldwide professional delivery services.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International International are proud to present Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, a historic event happening on Friday and Saturday the 11th and 12th of October at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, Westminster, London. Come and take part in musical workshops and panel discussions. Experience vibrant performances from up-and-coming UK and USA independent artists, groups and choirs. Special guest artists include from the USA, Wendy Henderson Wyatt, Carolyn Traylor, Charles Woolfall and Alicia Moore. From the UK, Olga Argo, Birmingham Community Gospel Choir, James Adams, Sam Adebanjo and Joshua Kessler. Your hosts are Ibe Jaikila and Madeline Kurzner from Premier Gospel. This is an event not to be missed. You can purchase your tickets from Eventbrite. For more information, visit gesummitintl.com.
This not biggie man, oh. This not for man, oh. Hello Nigeria, so should be on the enemy, oh. Don't be waiting, then we talk, oh. This was not what they promised us, oh. Them tell us that they go bring the change, oh. Oh no, 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 no. As the thing they go, situation is just a bad, oh. Hey, as they break, things is just a hard, oh. No food to chop. Every day they lie,
This
they
is
lie,
Starr
oh.
Radio
See the
UK.
people done they cry, oh. Oh no, 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 no. Pity for us, oh. Pity for us, oh. Politicians, please pity for us, oh. I beg, read the beg, oh. See my people done they die, oh. Please pity for us, oh. Politicians, please pity for us, oh. Oh no, 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 no. I believe in Nigeria with all my life. I bless to Nigeria, my country, oh. With all my heart, oh. Anywhere I go, na Naija. Anything I do, na Naija. Anywhere I go to Naija. See, my house is not for Naija. I invest in my Naija. Everything I plan for Naija. Politicians show some love, oh. Oh no, 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 no. Pity for us, oh. Pity for us, oh. Politicians have mercy on us, oh. Hey, I beg we the beg, oh. We don't care the thing done the bad, oh. Please pity for us, oh. Politicians, please pity for us, oh. Oh no, 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 no. Oh, hey, Naija. As we sit down, they complain today, our God, you food for our body. As we there for here, we they complain our only food for our body. Oh. Hey, search your conscience, oh. We serve we no good, oh. Make we live right, oh. We serve we know they try. I don't say everyday politicians steal our money. I don't say politicians carry our money go overseas. People they die, politicians just a smile, oh. Oh, people they die, oh. Their children they overseas. Pity for us, oh. Pity for us, oh. Politicians have mercy on us, oh. We don't need die, oh. Anything we do, oh. Please, pity for us, oh. Politicians have mercy on us, oh. Oh no, 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 no.
It's 11:37 from the heart of London. It's Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, and the Wednesday edition of the morning show. And let me say good morning to Miss Ife Popola, who is also in the house. Exactly at 1 o'clock, she'll be bringing you What's Next. You don't want to miss out on that program, so make sure that you stay glued to your sets. Just at 12 o'clock, I'll be taking you to a lot of places. Taking you to the Lib Dems conference that took place. We'll be bringing you the speech by the Lib Dems leader, Joe Swinson, and then we'll be taking you to the Supreme Court for the hearing of the the case they're pertaining to the prorogation of Parliament and everything there. We'll be having a look at all them stories there. So we want you to continue to stay tuned to listen to us on Star Radio UK. So now, let's look at some of the stories making the rounds here in the UK quickly. And I want to touch on one other story from the African continent as well. The envoy, the special envoy from the South African president, Ramaphosa, is still going around some of the countries. He was in Nigeria a couple of days ago. Now he went to Ghana yesterday. So he's going on apologizing for whatever is happening. But apologizing alone, does it actually solve the issue that is on the ground? Does it make the ordinary South African or the black South African, when he sees his African neighbor, does it think that, oh, okay, there's cordiality within us? Or they still see that because of their predicament, because of the fact that they cannot make ends meet, and they see that foreigners are making ends meet, they think that, oh, well, whatever it is, even if by the time you say Jack, before the police will come in, if somebody wants to lay somebody or rob somebody or do anything harm to somebody, they would have done it. So apologizing alone, does it go far enough? That's a question I'm asking there. With the envoy going around saying, we apologize, does it go far enough for the African continent? And let me take an opportunity to say good morning to Juliet Makapela, wherever you are. Hope you are doing very, very well. Now, the other issue also in Ghana is that we're ready for independent DNA test. The police to Takoradi girls' families. The families of these 3 girls or ladies who died are still venting their anger on the police and saying that, well, they will want to conduct their own private DNA tests. And there have been some are saying that even the bones, the remains are that of grass cutter and all that. So I don't know whether they've actually seen it. If it's here, yeah, I mean the general public will not see the bones and stuff like that. They pack it nicely, they take it to the labs to go and ascertain who or do the DNA test on it. But I don't know whether they've done that. And did they take any DNA samples of any of the members of their families to match it with? Definitely, I think they would have done that. But what do you think about all that? And some people are calling for the head of Miss Tiwa Adedankwa, the CID boss, and the criminologist Professor Kenneth Ajimayatefua has joined many calling on the Director General of the Criminal Investigation Department, the CID, to resign. The Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority said Mami Tiwa Adedankwa would have saved her integrity by waiting to be removed following the preponderance of calls asking her to step down. So we'll be having a look at that. But I've got only 90 minutes to do justice to this, and I want you to add your voice to it wherever you are. The lines are open. You want to call us? It is 0208-133-2257. 0208-133-2257 or 58. If you're in US or Canada, it is 001-718-303-2737. 001-718-303-2737. Text or WhatsApp is 075-3966-1744. 075-3966-1744. And our Twitter handle is Starr Radio UK. Email address is info@starradiouk.com. On the Brexit talks should not be a pretense, warns Barnier. And why is he saying that? He said the EU's chief negotiator says it is not enough for the UK to say what it does not want. So you're just saying, well, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want that. They said, tell us what you want as well. Some people say talk is cheap, but well, what is all going to happen? Now, Parliament suspension, not a matter for the courts. Meanwhile, in Europe, some of the stories are making the rounds there, and I'll be bringing you more of that. The Supreme Court has resumed its hearing into whether Boris Johnson acted lawfully in suspending Parliament. The judges are ruling on 2 appeals, one by campaigner Gina Miller's team and one by the government contesting a Scottish court ruling. The lawyer for the government is arguing the decision to suspend Parliament is not something a court of law can rule on. On Tuesday, the court was told the Prime Minister suspended Parliament to avoid the risk of MPs frustrating or damaging his Brexit plans. And there were some videos that were aired as well that showed an interview with with the Prime Minister. One of the journalists, I've forgotten who the name again. I think. Oh my goodness. I'll get a name. This morning he was on the telly. Now, interviewing the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister actually making some case as to the fact that Parliament is, weakening his strength of negotiating or making us leave the EU. So maybe he thought that the best way is to prorogue Parliament, by that way, shutting them, and then he can get on with it, as they say all the time. But getting on with it, this time round has not actually got on with it. So what is happening? This and a lot more coming your way, 11:44 at the time. Now, the UK and EU should not pretend to be negotiating a Brexit deal if there are no new proposals on the table, the EU chief negotiator has said. Michael Barnier said the UK telling the EU what it does not like about the current agreement was not enough. He cast doubt on two ideas put forward by the UK: a single all-island zone for agriculture and livestock, and Northern Irish veto over EU rules. Now, Boris Johnson has said there is a landing zone for an agreement. He said a deal is possible at a crucial summit of EU leaders on the 17th of October, although ministers have said they are reluctant to reveal the details of new proposals in advance for the fear they will be rubbished by the EU. So all that they're trying to do is saying that we're not going to show you whatever we have. Now, when it gets to the 17th, we just put it on the table, and then whether it's rubbish or not, at least we presented something. And if you don't want it, then we can tell the British public that, look, we presented something to them. They said they don't like it, so we are leaving. So is that a clue? Is that what Boris Johnson's government is trying to do now? So if you ask them, are they negotiating any deal? They said they don't negotiate in public. Good. Now, when asked again, what are you telling them? The EU is asking, what do you want us? What are the new ideas that you have that you want us to actually look at? And they are saying, well, we're not going to be bringing it out to you. We'll show you yet. We are waiting. When it's the 17th of October, we table that. When you see it and you say, you shake your head and say, no. Then we will also tell you, bye. So is it the way, or is that what the government has got inside, saying that, well, come the 31st of October, come what may, we are still living? Is that what they have in their sleep? Well, if you want to talk about it, feel free to do so. Call us on 0208 133 2257 or 58. Like I said, 12 o'clock exactly, we finish the first session of the program, and we'll take you to all the conferences that is taking place at the moment. Now, moving on to some other stories making the round. National security fears threatens defense takeover, and then daughter's gambling addiction left me homeless. That was the stories making the round. Man dies on Waterloo Station moving walkway. Interesting, I'll touch on that. Return to homeland, ambassadors urges UK polls. Now, that is Arkady Rezgorki writes to 800,000 Polish nationals, telling them to seriously consider leaving the UK and come back to Poland. Interesting. Because at least some people would think that, oh, there's no need for them to, but for them to say that is quite an interesting twist. Okay. Now, the government is to intervene in a U.S. private equity firm takeover of UK defense and aerospace firm Cobham, citing national security concerns. Advent International made a £4 billion offer to buy Cobham in July, and shareholders approved the deal last month. But Cobham founding family raised concerns about the company's future and its connection with the UK defense. The government said it wanted to support private sector innovation while safeguarding public interest. Now, Dorset-based Cobham, which employs 10,000 people, is known for pioneering technology enabling the mid-air refueling of planes. The firm also makes electronic warfare systems and communications for military vehicles. It is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. Now finally, a man has died while walking on a moving walkway at Waterloo Station. Paramedics were unable to save the worker, who has yet to be identified, and he was pronounced dead shortly after 02:20 British summer time. Now, British Transport Police officers are investigating the death, which is being treated as unexplained. Now, passengers were advised they would be unable to change lines because of a fault with one of the tube station's two travelators. A one-way system has been implemented at the station for the morning. But it is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London, bringing the time now to 11 minutes to the top of the hour. I am Archie. Now, moving on to the elections that took place in Israel. Netanyahu and rival headed for deadlock. Unofficial results in Israel's second election in 5 months suggest it is too close to call, Israel media says. Incumbent Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's party and that of his main challenger, Benny Gantz, are neck and neck with 32 seats each. The Kan public broadcaster says a Prime Minister needs to command a 61-seat majority in parliament. The smaller Israel Beitenu party appears to hold the balance of power. Now, official partial results are expected on Wednesday morning. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving prime minister, has been in office for 10 years and is vying to win a record 5th term in office. The 69-year-old, who leads the right-wing Likud party, has pledged to annex Jewish settlement and a swath of other territory in the occupied West Bank if he is returned to power. Now, Palestinians who seek a state in the West Bank and Gaza with its capital in occupied East Jerusalem has warned such a move will kill any hopes for peace. Mr. Gantz, who leads the centrist blue and white party, has not advocated any form of annexation, though his position on the creation of a Palestinian state is unclear. Like Mr. Netanyahu, he has ruled out ever. Let me just retake that one. Like Mr. Netanyahu, he has ruled out ever dividing Jerusalem, which Israel considers its capital. On Wednesday morning, Israel Beitnu's leader, Avigdor Lieberman, reiterated that he would only support a government comprising both Likud and blue and white. However, blue and white has ruled out sitting with Netanyahu in a coalition. What is it going to be? They've all got 32. Is there going to be a runoff between Netanyahu and the Mr. Gantz? Is that what is going to happen? Well, interesting times ahead. We know Netanyahu is fighting for his survival, because if he fails to win this election or loses his position as a prime minister, I bet you he's going to be tried for corruption that has been labeled with. Now, Taliban says door is open on Trump peace talks and Saudi oil drone attack, a blow for the world. Attacks on Saudi Arabia's oil facilities are an attack on the whole world, the country says. And then free Venezuela lawmaker, the regime kidnapped me, Eja Zambrano, was released after 4 months in detention following a failed opposition uprising. Hiker crawls for 2 days carrying broken leg. Neil Parker began his agonizing trip to safety after falling 6 meters at 20 feet down a waterfall in Australia. 3 killed in Venice boat speed record attempt. Fabio Bozzi's power boat hits rock as he neared the finishing line in the Venice Lagoon. And that is the end of those stories making the rounds there. Now, let me take you quickly to Ghana. We've got 8 minutes, and let's see what is happening on that front. Now, like I said earlier on, criminologist Professor Kenneth Ajimanatefua has joined many calling on the Director General of the Criminal Investigation Department to resign. The Executive Secretary of the National Identification Authority said Mamiti Wadudankwa would have saved her integrity by not waiting to be removed, following the preponderance of calls asking her to step down. Calls for Mrs. Adudankwa to step down follows news on Monday that the 4 missing Takoradi girls were dead following a result of a DNA test. Now, before the shocking news, the CID Director General has said that the girls, Priscilla Blessing Bentum, 21, Priscilla Mantibia Kuranchi, 18, Ruth Love Quason, 18, and Ruth Abeka, 18 as well, were alive and their whereabouts were known. However, after the sad news by the Acting Inspector General of Police, James Opong Buenu, Ghanaians want the police service to be held responsible for the deaths of the 4 girls, singling out the CID boss. Now, many people on Twitter have been calling for the resignation of the CID boss because, according to some, she handled the case unprofessionally and with utmost incompetence. Now, the preponderance of this view on Twitter on Monday shot hashtag Tiwa must go to the #1 spot on the social media site. Asked on Wednesday whether these calls for Mrs. Adudankwa to resign are justified, Professor Tefua gave the following response. In this country, we are slow to do the needful by ourselves. Although I know sometimes the clamor for a public office to resign happens where there is no sound evidential basis for it, but where individuals themselves know that they have goofed, that they have, by the acts of omissions or commission, generated a situation that is untenable, that undermines public confidence in the institution that they lead, and that also have the potential to affect the future dynamics and effectiveness of the institution, they must do the honorable thing of not waiting to be fired, but tender their resignation and to apologize in grace and exit the scene so that the pain is assuaged, confidence is assured, and innovation is triggered. He added, there is one of those moments, also my apologies, this is one of those moments that people have to swallow their pride, where as much as they might think they have been misunderstood or that the circumstances have not worked to your favor or have worked against you, that you do the honorable thing. You do the noble thing of saluting the state and taking a bow and a good exit. Do you think this will ever in our lifetime happen in Ghana, where somebody will say, well, because I goofed, I got it all wrong, apologies, I'm leaving? Do you think it will ever happen? I'm not sure in my lifetime. But it is Starr Radio UK. 4 minutes to the top of the hour is the time, and I'm bringing the program to a close in the next 4 minutes. But before I do that, the Director of Public Affairs of the Ghana Police Service, ACP, David Eklu, says the service is open to second opinion in the DNA outcome of the bodies that were retrieved at Kasarodo in the Western region. According to him, the police has nothing to hide in the result that confirmed that the bodies were that of the missing girls. Like I was saying earlier on, the police are saying that these are the missing girls. I mean, what advantage or what would they have to say, oh, no, that can't happen or that can happen? Well, it is Starr Radio UK, your favorite African and Caribbean radio station in London. 3 minutes to the top of the hour. We'll be taking a quick break, and once we come back, I'll run up the program. But as one issue that I want you to think about whilst I bring the program to a close is the fact that the envoy, the special envoy of President Ramaphosa, is going around the continent of Africa apologizing for the acts, inhumane acts that have been perpetrated by South Africans on foreigners, Africans who have come to South Africa to work or have own businesses there. I asked the question here that do you think that just going around and apologizing that what our people did was wrong goes far enough? What are the assurances that have been given? Yesterday we had the former president of Nigeria, Obasanjo, saying that if it were he was in power, one of the things that he would have done was to go to the AU, to call the AU to sanction South Africa. But I ask the question once again. South Africa being a very strong economically economic country on the African continent, and when it comes to health issues, because of the advancement in technology there, most people who don't want to fly to this part of the world go to that place for treatment and all sorts. Can we say we really want to cut our nose to spite our face? Well, that is something that I wanted to think about. But it is now time for me to bow out. We take a commercial break, we come back, and I bring you what is happening on the premises question time. I know the House of Parliament, to the Lib Dems conference that took place as well. So stay tuned. Don't touch the dial. It's been me, your one and only Archie. I say, have a wonderful day. God bless, and bye-bye.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International presents Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, an historic 2-day community event. Network with music industry professionals and experience outstanding performances from up-and-coming British and American artists on October the 11th and 12th at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, London. Book your tickets now on eventbrite.com.
Are you looking to deliver that urgent package and intact? Connect Time Logistics guarantees reliable, fast, secure, and time-sensitive door-to-door delivery services across Ghana, Africa, and indeed worldwide. Our services include air and sea cargo, vehicle shipping, and excess baggage. Connect Time Logistics has a specialized and dedicated customer service team to ensure prompt delivery to your door. Call our London office
+44 208 291 7575 or +44 208 858 6600.
Book online at www.connect-ta.com. Connect Time Logistics, connecting the dots in worldwide professional delivery services.
Getting onto the property ladder has never been easy until now. Join us this and every Thursday from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. live on the Property Hour Show on Starr Radio UK, where we talk to mortgage brokers, property developers, estate agents, landlord, tenant, property consultants on how to invest or get into the property business and make money. You can't afford to miss this. The Property Hour Show is your best source into the property industry.
Eric Reverence Management and Back-to-Back PR International are proud to present Gospel Explosion Summit 2019 UK meets USA, a historic event happening on Friday and Saturday the 11th and 12th of October at the Emmanuel Centre, Marsham Street, Westminster, London. Come and take part in musical workshops and panel discussions. Experience vibrant performances from up-and-coming UK and USA independent artists, groups and choirs. Special guest artists include from the USA, Wendy Henderson Wyatt, Carolyn Traylor, Charles Woolfall and Alicia Moore. From the UK, Olga Argo, Birmingham Community Gospel Choir, James Adams, Sam Adebanjo and Joshua Kessler. Your hosts are Ibe Giankiller and Madeline Kersler from Premier Gospel. This is an event not to be missed. You can purchase your tickets from Eventbrite.
In Section 3, and I'll come to that in a moment, and can control it afterwards. So there are mechanisms of control around the prorogation. Of course, during the prorogation, Parliament is prorogued. So by definition...
Does controlling it afterwards help?
Well, they can pass a motion of no confidence. They can call the government to account when Parliament resumes.
In a time-sensitive setting, how does afterwards help?
Well, if the thing is time sensitive, then Parliament can and has to react in the time that is left before the time sensitivity runs out.
The thrust of the appellant's case here is that the effect of prorogation is to deprive the Parliament of the opportunity at this critical time, coming up to the 31st of October, of the opportunity to scrutinise the government's actions and to hold the government to account. So a post hoc system of control isn't of much benefit in relation to that, is
Well,
it?
my Lord, I'm not going to repeat the answer. The answer is that whilst Parliament is prorogued, of course Parliament is not sitting and those species of control cannot be exercised. But we submit that in our facts, if it's a question about our facts, control has been exercised, was exercised, could have been exercised further, and will be exercised on the 14th of October and following.
I'm not sure repeating the answer necessarily gives me the information that I think my lady was asking for, and that is, what is the post hoc system of control? How does that affect what the appellants claim to have been deprived of here?
Well, it goes back to sufficiency of opportunity. There are, when Parliament resumes on the 14th of October, there are, irrespective of the extension provision, which presumably the court will not ignore, which has been passed in the new 2019 Act, so 31st of October may or may not be the deadline, but irrespective of that, and assuming that it is, it still has the period of whatever that number of days is. 17 days.
Sorry, I think maybe I haven't made my question clear. It's the question of a check and balance on the proroguing that I'm asking about. How does, once you've been prorogued and lost that time, how does it help to be able to take it up afterwards?
Well, it depends what is left of the legislative programme. It depends what then happens. It depends what remains time critical. Assume for the sake of argument that there is no time criticality. Parliament can then resume, exercise whatever functions it wishes, and pass whatever legislation it wishes, ask whatever questions it wishes about of the government. It can resume all the forms of control that it exercised beforehand. So if it is time critical, then that question becomes, is there enough time for the legislative programme that needs to be dealt with time critically to be dealt with? And my submission is that even if it's 31:10, there is time, and it's a matter for Parliament and the government to pass whatever legislation they consider necessary.
Returning to the issue raised by my Lord Wilson, the statutory instruments which would not be subjected to parliamentary scrutiny in the normal way and would have to go through a separate process, that would be irremediable, wouldn't it?
Well, my Lord, sorry. I'm being told that we've got a note from our instructing solicitors and departments on that issue.
You'll come back to me.
And we can address that if it's a matter of concern, and it's been raised twice by them.
Could I ask a slightly different question while there's a pause? Suppose that the government does give reasons for the prorogation, and suppose it is said that because of some incident there needs to be a pause, but then seeks and obtains a prorogation which is much longer than that, so that it could be said that there's no rational connection between the end which was stated to be the purpose. Are you saying that the courts would have no role in that situation?
My lady, I am. I am, because that is in essence testing the sufficiency of the period.
Well, it's put at a very low test where there's no rational connection.
Yeah. I am. I mean, you understand, our case is that this is political territory. This is not, for all the reasons I've given, about judging the sufficiency and how you judge the sufficiency of opportunity or the length. This is not territory in which there are appropriate and proper legal standards.
Even though the government has specified the purpose?
Even though. because they will specify reasons, no doubt, for political reasons. And that is the form in which they are to be judged and in which they are to be controlled. I mean, it comes in a way, it comes in essence to the case that my learned friend eventually ran, Lord Panning eventually ran in answer to Lady Black's question, which is it's got to be the shortest possible time or no more than is reasonably necessary for the purpose, as he asserted it, of closing one's parliamentary session and opening another, or the objective of doing a Queen's speech. Now, the problem with that way of putting the case is the one that Lord Keane mentioned yesterday, which I won't go back into, based on the 1867 Act, which is that you can prorogue Parliament when it's summoned to meet, in other words, postpone the first Queen's speech, and when it's already prorogued, you can do a double prorogation. So the basic purpose needs to be identified and cannot be shrunk to the time needed to produce a Queen's speech, with the court having to make judgments about how long is necessary for that purpose.
That would take an extra order in council. You can't just say that. You'd have to advise.
Yes, you could have a double prorogation. You could do it twice. Yes. But my only real point is that it's not just restricted to how long do you need to do a Queen's speech, because prorogation can exist in a whole variety of different contexts. And
it does overcome this problem that you can't tell the purpose. If the government has said what the purpose is, and still there's no rational connection, what's the objection to the court intervening?
Well, my lady, all the ones that I've identified. Yeah. I'm not sure it advances more than that. And we submit that it is for the government to regulate the sessions of Parliament, the sittings of Parliament, while it's in existence, subject to the specific constraints that exist. And even if the purpose were to prepare for a Queen's speech, pure and simple, and you could restrict it to that, the Divisional Court again addressed that and dealt with the difficulties of a court trying to assess whether the period for preparation of a Queen's speech should properly be 5 weeks, 4 weeks, or 3 weeks. Simply impossible, they concluded. We respectfully submit correctly. So our basic submission is both the formulation and design of the principal control over parliamentary sittings simply raises questions the courts cannot answer by reference to what standards does it do it when you actually properly analyse what my learned friend is contending for, which is all about sufficiency of length or sufficiency of opportunity. And it also raises the other basis of non-justiciability. Is it appropriate for the court to be designing this set of rules? And we submit not. They are and they should be for Parliament, and it can, and indeed has in fact answered the when and for how long questions in legislation when they've chosen to do so. And all of that, all of those submissions we submit are thrown into stark relief by the very recent events that have occurred. And I make only 2 points in relation to those recent events. First, there was always going to be, and there will be, sittings affording opportunities for Parliament to express its will and to legislate as it chooses. Section 3 was enacted, and the significance of it being enacted is that it and the other pieces of legislation that I took you to in our case indicate that when Parliament wishes to control sittings, it's made specific provision for doing so. And it has in fact made specific and detailed provision for precisely that, with Brexit and its dates very well in mind through the Anderson Amendment in Section 3. It could have made different provision if that's what it wanted to do. It didn't do so. And it illustrates also, Section 3, that there are legislative judgments that are involved in making that sort of legislation, about which Parliament is the only judge. when, for how long, how do you come back, for what period, what are the principled and procedural controls. And the key point is that at the heart of these claims is an invitation to the court to enter territory through the principles of judicial review with a view to the legal imposition of additional controls to those specifically enacted in Section 3, with Brexit clearly in mind. Additional controls. Secondly, the centrepiece of the claim was, and I think remains, despite the attempt to broaden it out, the contention that prorogation was intended to have and has had the effect of depriving Parliament of an or a sufficient ability to legislate specifically in relation to what were perceived to be the consequences of a no-deal Brexit on the 31st. And the events during the course of the hearing before the Divisional Court in the Inner House and that have occurred subsequently demonstrate precisely why and how that is untenable, in fact. Parliament has had and has taken the opportunity to legislate. It has done so in the new Act, and so there are now primary legislative controls over exit with a deal, 2018 Act, exit without a deal, extension, and all of that is covered by primary legislation. So Parliament has legislated for all of those things. And if it's said that more time is going to be needed, i.e. beyond the period up to 9th of September and before 14th of October, two questions arise, and they're the same basic two questions. How is the court to determine that question? How much more time should Parliament have been afforded? And how is it appropriate for the court to do so when Parliament has legislated, as it has in Section 3, so as to require, in effect, additional sittings to those specifically provided for in the primary legislation? And there could, of course, have been further legislative provision even in the new 2019 Act. There could, even before you got there, have been before, in that week leading up to the prorogation on the 9th of September, there could, of course, have been a motion of no confidence. But if Parliament had wished, when it enacted the new Act, if I can call it that, to produce a provision requiring that Parliament should sit during the period of prorogation, they could have said so. No such provision was even in the bill. And it's no answer to that to say Queen's consent. Whether Queen's consent is actually needed for a bill is a matter for Parliament and the Speaker, and the courts cannot make any assumption that it would be needed. We note that it was not a provision, it was not needed and was not sought for the enactment of Section 3. And nor can the court assume, if this was the implication or suggestion of Lord Pannick's submissions, that even if it had been needed, it would not have been sought or obtained. You can simply make no assumptions about that at all. The fact of the matter is that Parliament had the opportunity, if it had wished to do so, to legislate not merely to control the undesirable, perceived undesirable consequences of a no-deal Brexit. It could have said, and by the way, if and to the extent that Parliament is going to be prorogued next week, we think we need more time. But it didn't do that. Can I turn briefly, and it is, I'm afraid, going to be briefly because of timing and because no one is mounting a challenge in this case that it should have been the 9th. I'm going to give the Section 3 and how it works issue. I'm going to try and grapple with that briefly, but there isn't a direct issue before you about that, so I'm going to take it tolerably shortly if I may. You find the provision itself behind tab 59 in bundle 3 of the authorities, of our authorities. If it helps to give the Cherry MS number, I don't know if that is helpful, 2951. Thank you.
3.
Bundle 3, tab 59, my lord.
Don't think our bundle 3 is up to that.
Oh, maybe bundle 4? I'm so sorry. Yes, sorry, it's bundle 4. I'm sorry.
What was the cherry number, please?
2951, my lady.
It is.
Do you see the basic structure of the section? It's to produce reports, to publish or make reports. I think in sub 1 it's publish, in sub 5 it's make, but it matters not. You've got to produce a report. The first one's got to be produced on the 4th of September, the second one's got to be produced on or before the 9th of October. That's sub 5. And the one that is produced on the 9th of October will be a report under subsection 1. Yes? So, go back to the rules that would apply to the first report, or did apply to the first report, produced on the 4th of September, and then 2 cuts in. The Secretary of State, 2 and 3 together cut in. Secretary of State must make arrangements for a copy to be laid on the same day it's published. That's 2A. And then motions moved in the Commons and the Lords, 2B and 2C. And those have to be moved in the relevant House, see sub 3, within a period of 5 calendar days, beginning with the end of the day on which the report is laid before Parliament. Right, so that's what happens in the ordinary scenario. But then 3.4 is the critical provision for present purposes. It specifically contemplates, as you see, the possibility that when such a report, either 4th of September or subsequent reports, because they're all Section 1 reports, when a report is published, Parliament will stand prorogued or adjourned. So it's making very specific provision for what happens when Parliament stands prorogued. Let's leave aside adjournment for simplicity. And in that set of circumstances, the bespoke rules that are set out in 4 apply. And the first obligation that then happens is that the Minister of the Crown can't comply with the obligations under 2 and 3. So this is specifically contemplating that as a result of the prorogation, despite having published the report under 1, there will not be an opportunity or the possibility of either laying or moving the motions. And in that set of circumstances, i.e. recognising that you can't, for the purpose of this set of sections, lay in this way, what then is to happen to complete those steps? That's what 4 is about. And the first thing that happens is you've got to get Parliament back. A proclamation under the Meeting of Parliament Act 1797 shall require Parliament to meet on a specified day within the period within which compliance with subsection 3 is required.
What are the mechanics of that? Would the Prime Minister have to ask the Queen to
make a proclamation? Yeah. No? Not sure is the answer to that.
Well, it's not all that.
No, but anyway, you've got the day within the period within which compliance with 3 is required, and that is a period we respectfully submit of 5 calendar days.
Your point is all of this could have been translated to a wider provision, or a different provision, and Parliament chose not to do that.
My point about how this works, I think this is what I'm really trying to address.
Yes, I think you're going to say that it only requires compliance within a period of subsection 3 and not subsection 2. But the problem with that submission is that 3 depends upon a day on which the report is laid before Parliament, which takes you back to 2.
Well, that's true, but that's just simply being used to define the period. So we take for this purpose the day of laying as being the date of publication. And you still get a period of 5 days for compliance with sub 3 from then.
How can the date of publication be the date of laying when you can't lay?
Well, you have to have something because it's recognising earlier on in the subsection that you can't comply with 2 or 3, and 2 is about laying. So the only way of making it work sensibly is that. Does that make sense? That's the...
Yes.
And then you have a period of 5 working days thereafter.
In the limitations of this, yes, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So you say because the second report had to come in on the 9th of October, subsection 4 allowed the government to prorogue until the 14th of October.
Exactly so.
The end of the 5 days.
Exactly so. And then, pursuant to the provisions of this, and I agree, the slightly odd wording is required after sub 3 and 4, but otherwise it works worse the other way, if that makes sense. So this is a way of making it work sensibly. That means that you set your period, and it refers to a period, by the way, so it's got to be a period which is referred to. It's the 5 calendar day period, and there's a strangeness, or perhaps a felicity, in the 3 uses calendar days, and then there's working days at the end of 4, but you do your 5-day period for that, and then you have 5 working days within which to debate. And what that effectively does is set a mechanism by which Parliament, and no doubt the 5 calendar day period is a sensible one, because it will require some mechanics to be gone through to get Parliament back to do the laying and all of that.
So you say Parliament wished to be in session from the 14th and 5 days thereafter.
Exactly. That's how we say it works. But I emphasise, this isn't no one's queried this isn't an issue in this litigation.
Do you say there are any restrictions on the subject matter of debate?
I don't know. 5 working days, and that's why we had the 4th of September and the prorogation happened on the 9th. I mean, this was set. The period of prorogation was evidently set by reference to the primary, it goes back to the point I was asked earlier, by reference to the primary legislative controls that applied, but with that interpretation, with that view being taken about how it operates at the end, which was my Lady Blake. I hope that's of some assistance anyway.
Thank you.
Ladies and my lords, the extended prorogation scenario, we've dealt with that. In other words, test the limits of it by reference to an indefinite or 1 year or whatever it may be. We are dealing, I emphasise here, with a 5-week prorogation. It isn't our position or anything remotely like it. And historically, there have been prorogations for prolonged periods, as you see. In extreme examples, and not so extreme examples, there would be intense practical controls in any event over a longer prorogation, including specifically all the concerns about government needing money to govern and armed forces discipline and so on that we set out in our case at paragraph 92(3). And we've cited, again I haven't got time to go to it, but we've cited in our case at paragraph 76 Dicey, drawing out the lack of legal enforceability even in extreme circumstances. And that passage is predicated, we note, on the not on the non-reviewability of the prerogative as such, but it's examining the fact that there are controls which are parliamentary ones, and there are good parliamentary reasons why the government would need to go back to Parliament for authority to get money and so on. So that was the dicey reasoning and had nothing to do with, and therefore is not answered by, the extension of judicial review created by the GCHQ case. So my learned friend Lord Panic then seeks to identify standards against which he says the court can make these sorts of judgments. How can it do it? And there are 2, one of which I'll take very shortly and the other at a little bit more length, if I may. The first is responsible government, and some principle of responsible government, but we submit that substantially the same issues arise in relation to that. How do you determine the standard? How can it be constitutionally appropriate for the courts to do so? What type of issue or issues of political or national controversy or importance would trigger the intervention? What is responsible and what isn't? And you still have to solve the problem of sufficiency of opportunity for Parliament to legislate or control. So we respectfully submit that responsible government does not provide any answer to the lack of manageable or judicial standards. It simply prompts the same questions in a different form. Parliamentary sovereignty, then, reliance on that, we submit, does not advance his case or provide an answer to non-justiciability. The difficulties in terms of justiciability already identified can't be sidestepped, the point I made earlier, simply by reciting parliamentary sovereignty. They have to be confronted. It has to be said that parliamentary sovereignty requires the courts to intervene, to design and then apply a principle which controls when Parliament must sit in circumstances when Parliament itself has not done so. See Section 3 and see the lost opportunity, if you view it as such, in the 2019 Act. So parliamentary sovereignty, just as a phrase, provides no answer to the principled objections that have been advanced. For all the reasons that I've given, the courts can engage, for them to engage in the exercise that Lord Pannick seeks to invite you into, would have the twin difficulties of no standards and constitutional impropriety, we submit. And that is not answered by parliamentary sovereignty either, because the political or high policy line set in the case law is set by reference to the equally core constitutional principle and the much more applicable one, directly applicable one, which is the separation of powers. Especially, I emphasise, in circumstances where Parliament has legislated specifically to deal with sittings in this context, and has specifically preserved, but otherwise not controlled, the prerogative of prorogation. And the court is in effect being asked to redesign and produce additional sittings of Parliament by some set of legal mechanisms or controls. And for all of the reasons given by the Divisional Court in their judgment at paragraphs 63 and 64, addressing the parliamentary sovereignty arguments directly and focusing on the relationship between the executive and Parliament, that isn't appropriate, we submit. So that's the second point. The third point is that there is no support in the case law for any principle of parliamentary sovereignty of that kind at all. Parliamentary sovereignty has the well-established meanings and the principal basis established in the case law, as we've set out in our case at paragraph 97, giving the acknowledged and accepted meanings of parliamentary sovereignty. The key principle for present purposes, and you see those reflected, I should add, in the Miller case, the first Miller case, bundle 3, tab 29 at paragraph 43, but the key principle for present purposes is that the expression of that sovereignty, to which the other pillars of the state bow, is in enacted legislation, as it was in Miller. And to give you one other reference in Miller without turning it up now, 1, 2, 3 of Miller demonstrates that nothing less will do. Nothing less than enacted legislation will do. You will recall the debate in Miller with me unsuccessfully persuading you, or seeking to persuade you, of the relevance of the various parliamentary debates and discussions there have been about Article 50, which fell short of enacted legislation. And the court said, no, that won't do. You need enacted legislation or nothing. So that is the key principle. Nothing in the case law supports or suggests that an aspect of parliamentary sovereignty requires that the court should intervene to design and then apply a principle that controls when and for how long Parliament should sit. And none of the cases that my learned friend identified go anywhere near any such principle. The Picking case, which he relied upon below, does not do so. That's in bundle 2, tab 19. That was the case about parliamentary privileges. But in essence, that was a case which positively supports us, because it indicates that the courts will not go behind the manner in which legislation went through the House, went through Parliament. The Unison case, on which very considerable reliance was placed before and almost none in this court, again, for good reason, again doesn't go anywhere near that. In that case, the court was considering the nature and extent and legal controls over a broadly expressed power to set fees for the employment tribunals. And the judgment of Lord Reid made absolutely clear that if it's a generally expressed power, a bit like those cases on principle of legality, you have to take into account the constitutional principle and importance of citizens being afforded access to court. So that goes nowhere near saying an aspect of parliamentary sovereignty that the courts need to protect is the sittings of Parliament and whether or not Parliament has sufficient time, whether prorogation should be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, or even 5 weeks. So that's what I wanted to say about all of that. I wanted to touch finally and briefly, if I may, on the some of the factual matters that arise. And this is, if you will, under a heading lawful in any event. The key starting point, we respectfully submit, is that Parliament has been considering Brexit for months and years. It has had the opportunity to make whatever legislative provision it has wished over that period, and it has in fact made a plethora of legislative provision, including and starting with the authorising of the giving of the Article 50 notice following Miller 1. Specifically, Parliament, and more directly, Parliament has decided with this set of deadlines in mind to make Section 3 of the Northern Irish legislation. And the prorogation decision thus sits in a context in which Parliament would sit and would debate and legislate, if it chose to, in the week leading up to the prorogation on the 9th of September, and would have further opportunities after the Queen's speech on the 14th of October. That period, as we've seen, being conditioned by the primary legislative provisions in Section 3.
Doesn't there have to be a debate on the Queen's speech?
There has to be a debate on the Queen's speech.
How long does that customarily take?
8 days? 5 days. 5 days. We saw from the debate yesterday, and I'm not going to go back to it, that few sitting days in fact have been lost by comparison with recess or adjournment.
Recess is introduced by a proposal from the government, isn't that right?
I think that's right. A motion.
On which the House of Commons votes.
I think they're different, aren't they? House of Commons, House of Lords? Separate recess motions in both houses.
Yes, yes, quite. Is there any explanation as to why a recess wasn't contemplated here instead of prorogation?
I think you need a prorogation on any view as a precursor to the Queen's speech.
Well,
so you've got to do that. The question is for how long?
Yes.
Yeah, well, you made those submissions.
It would be impossible to have both, wouldn't it? I mean, there could have been a recess for the party conferences. And that would have...
You could. I mean, in theory, you could have any combination of the two.
And then a conventional prorogation period thereafter.
Yeah, you could in theory have a shorter prorogation period, a longer period of recess. But certainly,
of course, the decision not to go for a recess combined with prorogation meant that Parliament was deprived of the opportunity to vote on whether it would go into recess over the party conference period, or because of imminent events, it would choose not to do so.
Well, my submission is that it had plenty of opportunities to regulate its own sittings by legislation at all stages.
That's not put by way of contention. I simply want to clarify the situation.
Yeah. My Lord, just before leaving that, and without wishing to make a jury point against an eminent politician, one of the examples given of recess being taken into account for the purpose of determining the length of prorogation was when Sir John Major was Prime Minister. So you got that choice, certainly, but the idea that recess needed to be thought about was a relevant consideration and so on. That, respectfully submit, is a matter of political choice.
In the memoranda to which Lord Keane took us yesterday, there isn't any discussion about the possibility of going into recess combined with prorogation.
There isn't discussion of that. There is discussion of the party conference season. There is discussion
Oh,
of the number of sitting days actually lost. There is discussion about facilitating the SNP party conference. There is discussion about the bills falling, and so on. So those choices are all available, in theory. But first point I wanted to make on the facts, I'm not going to spend long on them, but the first thing I want to make, submission I wanted to make on the facts, is that it is plain from those underlying documents, both from the Nicky da Costa memo of the 15th of August, and in particular from what was said by the Prime Minister to the Cabinet, that there was real concern to ensure that Parliament had adequate opportunities, sufficient opportunities to debate these matters. They all recognised, and specifically recognised, that Parliament would have the chance to do, it may be said, precisely what it then did do, which is in the run-up to the 9th of September to debate and to legislate. Of course, in that period, there were lots of other options open to Parliament. A motion of no confidence could have been introduced. The legislative provision that was in fact made could have been added to so as to control the prorogation that by then had been announced. No such decision was made. No such decision was made to alter, Section 3 and the requirements that it contained for Parliament to sit in the run-up to the 31st of October. None of that was done. But the suggestion ultimately that on the basis of those materials, those factual basic materials, the Prime Minister was concerned to stymie Parliament, whatever on earth that means, is, we respectfully submit, untenable. Of course it is true, as everyone has acknowledged, that if you prorogue, prorogation has the effects that I've identified. But all of this was done in the sure knowledge that Parliament would have all the opportunities it had to legislate, to control, to debate in the manner that it in fact did up to the 9th of September, specifically about Brexit and specifically about sittings if it so choose, and would have opportunities when it came back on the 14th of October. So that basic attack, if the basic attack is this was improper purpose or improper motivation or improper effect, if there is such a doctrine, because it was designed to stymie Parliament, we respectfully submit it is unsustainable. And we have produced, and I should make it absolutely clear, we have produced exceptionally the Cabinet Minute. Those are minutes which are produced only with extraordinary rareness. And you have the documents that went to and from the Prime Minister in terms of the briefing to him.
We do have those documents, but we have no witness statement from anybody apart from the Treasury Solicitor. And so no one has come forward from your side to say, this is true. We're just given the documents, as it were, floating around for what they're worth. The whole truth, nothing but the truth, partly true. They're just floating around. Well, isn't it odd that nobody has signed a witness statement to say, this is true, the reasons are, these are the true reasons for what was done?
My Lord, you have the witness statement you have. You have the witness statement you have. My submission is that in the light of the case law you were taken to yesterday, which I don't go back to, it remains open to the court to make judgments about the facts on the basis of the underlying documentation if that is produced. That underlying documentation has been produced. It's documentation at the top of government, briefings directly to the Prime Minister twice, and what the Prime Minister said to Cabinet and what Cabinet discussed on that occasion. And no one has suggested that those are not proper documents. You saw also the letter from GLD, from the Government Legal Department, that you were taken to yesterday. So my Lord is right. You don't have a witness statement of the kind you traditionally would do. But there may be all sorts of reasons for that.
How unusual is that? Because most of the judicial review, you're dealing with decisions that are recorded, and you don't expect to have an affidavit from the leader of the council to say, yes, course, that was what we were doing, because I don't know
If
whether
it's
this is
clear,
different.
and equally, in some cases, what one has is a mere covering affidavit that says, here's the ministerial submission which had a
Because,
tick
I mean,
on
the
it.
suggestion here seems to be that the Prime Minister should personally have sworn an affidavit and then have been subject to cross-examination on it.
I've never experienced that.
I think Lord Panic said that was one alternative.
Yes,
the alternative was the Cabinet Secretary to make a statement.
But I mean, would that be practical? And I'm generally concerned to know how this should be done if Lord Panic is right, because the idea that the Prime Minister would have to come back from Luxembourg in order to be cross-examined.
I've never been involved in a judicial review, if I'm allowed to give evidence. I've never been involved in a judicial review in which the minister who made the decision has actually given a witness statement.
But would the Cabinet Secretary have been
Possibly. Civil servants often do.
Yes, but I mean...
And that can be in a variety of forms, including simply saying the reasons for the decision appear from, or here is the minister...
Would the Cabinet Secretary have been cross-examined on what the government's motives were?
Well, my lord, if any such application had been made, it would have been resisted like fury, but that mere possibility is a feature.
It's just I think it is important that in the context of judicial review, one comes across these sort of issues about how the evidence should be dealt with.
Yes.
And it's not always straightforward.
No, but my lord, certainly in relation to the actual Minister or Secretary of State, it is undoubtedly not the practice. Indeed, my experience is it's uniformly not the practice that the Secretary of State would produce a witness statement of that kind.
The setting for this discussion, I think, is that Lord Panic says, well, the appellants had made clear to the government what they conceived to be and alleged to be the true motives for the prorogation. The only answer that the government has given is to produce documents which predated the allegation, and it would have been entirely conventional and to be expected that a statement would be made in which it was averred that those documents contained the only reasons for the prorogation, and there's no explanation as to why that conventional course was not followed.
Well, there isn't. But the answer is you have the documents that were produced, and the documents that were produced were at the height of government, as I've indicated, and you have the letter from GLD saying the search
The point that I'm making, Sir James, the essential point is that those were not in reaction to the case that was being made against
the
government.
my lord, but one needs to be a bit careful with that, because otherwise any claimant can turn up and make any allegation and then say, well, there we are, and now I'd like to cross-examine you about it. So, I mean, there are questions there, but the basic legal position is that the court can operate, and we respectfully invite them to operate, on the basis of the underlying documents that have been produced, particularly documents of that seniority, if I can describe them in that way. And if you do look at those documents, as we respectfully invite the court to do, certainly the suggestion that the Prime Minister was operating on the basis that Parliament was intended to be stymied is untenable. Both in the briefing to him and in his statements to Cabinet, he made it absolutely clear that he well understood that Parliament was going to have the opportunities that it in fact had. And indeed, if he'd tried to say that, knowing that Parliament was going to come back on the 3rd of September and do what it in fact did, it was entirely predictable. It was either going to be a motion of no confidence or it was going to be legislation. And so the idea that Parliament would be deprived of the opportunity to take whatever steps it wished in that run-up, including in relation to the sittings of Parliament, is just simply untenable. The second and final point I wanted to make on the facts, and then I will finish, is really by way of invitation. I haven't got time now, and I don't intend to go through the documents themselves, but we do respectfully invite the court to read, I'm sure the court will already have read, particularly the first Da Costa memo, which is the briefing to the Prime Minister, and that Cabinet minute. And from those documents, we respectfully submit that it does appear that there were a myriad of reasons for the length, which is truly what we're arguing about, of this prorogation. You may say, well, it hasn't covered recess versus prorogation, it hasn't covered the precise period and so on. But in truth and in fairness, reading those documents, the evident aim was tolerably clear, and it was that everyone, and particularly the Prime Minister, was concerned to get to a place where a Queen's speech was produced They recognised that prorogation had the effects it was going to have. They fully recognised that the context would involve parliamentary opportunities to do what they in fact did. They recognised that some bills would fall, wash up, would need to be considered, all those parliamentary matters would need to be considered. And in particular, the paragraph my Lord Keane took you to yesterday, paragraph 10 in the Da Costa memo, they recognised that the central planning assumption, I think as it was put, to get to the Queen's speech was incredibly tight anyway, and a period of 5 weeks was, as it were, the minimum that would be required to get there. Now, you can say, as Lord Kerr no doubt would say, well, what about recess? You could do recess and then they could do PQs and parliamentary committees and all the rest of it. But the fact of the matter is that there's a short period within which government intensively prepares, not merely for all the possibilities that Brexit throws up, but for the preparation and presentation of a full-blown new legislative agenda to deal with a whole raft of domestic governmental policies. And so the question you're in truth being asked is, can it be said that that was improper? We respectfully submit not, because the primary basis for that has gone, once you recognise that the Prime Minister fully appreciated Parliament would have the opportunity it had. But can you say that that was an irrational or improper judgment in relation to the length of it, or even in relation to whether it should be adjournment or recess, with all the business of Parliament dragging ministers and civil servants' attention off, or should it be a short period of prorogation of that description to prepare for the Queen's speech? How does the court answer that question? We respectfully submit it's impossible for it to do so. Could it be 5? Could it be 4? Could it be 3? Should it have been something else? No manageable or judicial standards, we respectfully submit, and not appropriate for the court to be in that territory. If Parliament wants to do it, it can do it, and it has done it. And that we respectfully submit as the answer to this appeal. So for those reasons, we do respectfully submit that the Divisional Court's judgment was entirely correct for all the reasons that they gave.
I'm going to write that down, Sir James.
I should have said that at the beginning and just sat down, maybe.
No. Sir James was looking at me because
I thought you hadn't finished.
He knew that I couldn't be tempted. I couldn't be tempted to another question. Is it accepted that there was a political advantage to the government in having a prorogation period of 5 weeks?
There was a political advantage to the government. In fact. I'm not sure I can answer that question.
Well, in fact, it means that during whatever period, be it 7 days, as Lord Keane would have it, or be it a longer period if the decision to adjourn had been taken in combination with prorogation, it does mean that the period during which scrutiny of the government's actions, particularly, it is said, in this very critical period coming up to Brexit, is reduced. Now, can it be other than the case that that represents an advantage to the government, a political advantage to the government?
Well, my Lord, there's political advantage to the government in having, as it were, a clear space. I can certainly accept that, and having a clear space when it isn't subject to the daily grind within which to prepare, not merely to do all the things that have to be done in relation to Brexit and the negotiations and all that, but also to prepare the Queen's speech. And you saw paragraph 10 in the Da Costa memo. So to that extent...
Your answer in summary is, well, it saves a lot of time when you could be devoting your resources elsewhere. But my question is a rather different one, and that is whether there is, if it be the case that scrutiny is rendered impossible, could that not be properly regarded as an advantage to the government?
Well, I mean, I suppose it could be in theory, but...
So the respondent's case here is that's a purely incidental benefit, not one that was sought.
My Lord, that's, I mean, you read the memos and you read what was said to Cabinet and you make
but
your own
that
mind.
depends upon us accepting that the memos are comprehensive of the reasons that the 5-week period was chosen. And that's why it may be argued that a statement, a contemporaneous statement, in reaction to the case made against you, might have been not only valuable but essential.
In fairness, I think the only case that was advanced about that was not that government was seeking a political advantage in having lack of scrutiny in that sense on the facts. The case that was factually advanced, based on the interviews to which Lord Panic took you, was that he was trying to improve the position of the in negotiations with the EU, and that was in some way improper. And we certainly wouldn't accept that. But my lord, prorogation is what it is. You can certainly work on the assumption that everyone understood that prorogation had the effects that it has. But my respectful submission is, even if you were to conclude that some part of the motivation for the length of the prorogation, which is all that is attacked, was political advantage, that is not unlawful. And this is the territory in which you are being invited. You're being invited to judge different species of political advantage. Is one relevant? Is one proper? Is one improper? And for all the reasons I've given, we submit that isn't an appropriate place for the court to be. One day, my lord, I will persuade you of something. perhaps not yet.
Can I ask you one or two questions about relief?
Yes. My lord, just before you do, can I say, and it'd be very helpful to have the questions, but can I say that what we are proposing to do on relief, and I've discussed this with Lord Keane, we think it's quite important that we should have something very short in writing on relief, not least because there's an issue, it appears, or a potential issue about proceedings in Parliament. There are the various stages to prorogation that you know about. There is to be borne in mind the question as to, and it goes to a question my Lord Kerr was asking yesterday, the question as to quite what the reasoning of the court would be in the event of a finding that this was justiciable and unlawful. Normally in public law, as you know, the position is that unless the reasoning of the court leaves open only one lawful answer, the matter goes back for reconsideration. It doesn't formally have to be remitted. It doesn't terribly matter whether the thing is declared void or isn't declared void. There's a great big intellectual debate about that, which you're well aware of. But that doesn't really touch that. The decision maker can retake on a lawful basis if that remains open. So lots may depend upon the precise reasoning of the court as to the options that are available. And that may engage questions as to whether or not, even in the event of a finding of unlawfulness, it would be appropriate to do more than make our submission. Ultimately, I suspect is going to be what it has been to date, which is declaration and no more. But to do more than that and then to let the thing sort itself out. But there are issues of some complication, and we thought it might be appropriate to put something brief down in writing, if that's not too inconvenient.
Well, it will be entirely inconvenient if you don't do it by the end of tomorrow.
Well, my lady, we have been planning to do it overnight.
Well, overnight would be even better.
Good.
Thank you.
And the declaration, as I understood Lord Keane yesterday, would be to the effect not only that the advice was unlawful, but also that the prorogation was unlawful.
Well, we'll have to, may I think about that? May I take that under advisement, as it were?
Well, the order in council.
Yes.
Well,
yes, but there is, as you're aware, another stage, which is that there was a...
Oh, we know about that.
Yes, I know you do.
We know what you're proposing to say about that.
Yeah.
Probably Lord Panic will have something to say about it too.
Yeah. It struck me that relief is potentially a very difficult question.
Yes.
So any help you can give us will be gratefully received.
We shall try.
If I may, that Lord Panic did refer to Ahmed and Treasury and the prospective form of relief.
Right. Well, we'll go back and look at that. Make sure that's covered. I can seek to assist further.
I think everybody's asked you what they wanted to ask you, Sir James. Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Blundell? Well, it seems... Mr. O'Neill, do you want to have 5 minutes, or would you like us to adjourn and come back at 5 to 2?
I'll take 2 minutes, if I may, Melody. It's just a couple of thoughts immediately arising from what's just been discussed. But I will hope to start on the multiple submissions after lunch. But really, just a couple of observations. If relief is an incredibly difficult point, as the Lord Regis said, you'd think we might get some say in it as well. The idea that they will, in discussions amongst themselves, between Lord Keane and Sir James, produce what they think this court should do without any input from those.
Well, you're entitled to make your input now, Mr. O'Neill.